3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We will be joined by Christian Hackenberg to talk a little college football playoff. You have Boise State going up against Penn State on New Year's Day, as we are down to 8 in the CFP, and we can't wait for that one. And looking forward, obviously, to all of that conversation when it comes to the college football playoff. Or actually, that's New Year's Eve when you do have Penn State up against Boise State. But nonetheless, going to be a very fun college football playoff. We'll talk a little bit about it, about Christian Hackenberg. Hope everyone had a great Christmas. Hope everyone had a great first night of Hanukkah. And today's like one of those days. I think we're the only Monday through Friday show on the network that is actually broadcasting without a fill-in host today. I believe that is true. So if we mess anything up today, I'm not a participation trophy kind of guy, but we are here, and I think that matters, and I didn't want to miss any of this because there's so much going on in the NFL world. There's so much going on in the college football world, and let's be real. I will never shame my fellow coworkers. I will not do that. It's just, let's be real. The reason I'm here today is because I take most of my vacation in the summer, and I never really leave days for this time of the year outside of we were off Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and I'll be off New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So nonetheless, I will be here today, and I will be here tomorrow, and we'll take you all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. I was watching the football yesterday, and you had two games that on paper, right, should have been good games. But if you've been following all four of those teams throughout the year, you shouldn't be surprised at the results. The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. You could say it's the Lions. You could say it's the Eagles. You could say it's the Minnesota Vikings. You could say it's the Buffalo Bills. You could say it's the Baltimore Ravens. Until proven otherwise on a big stage in the postseason, when the Chiefs aren't standing on the stage at the end of the year, getting interviewed by whomever with another Lombardi trophy, they are the team to beat. They've won back-to-back championships. They have become a dynasty last year, winning their third Super Bowl since February of 2020. They are a dynasty. They are the new Patriots. And if you know me, I don't say that very easily, and I don't just throw that around, and I don't like to call teams great until they show that there is sustained greatness. But that's what Kansas City's doing. And we sat here the entire football season, and we tried to find a way to give the championship to somebody other than Kansas City, and we used the V word, vulnerable. The Chiefs are vulnerable. And don't get me wrong. There have been many times this year where the Kansas City Chiefs win a game and you walk away saying, how the heck did they win that game? The other team fumbled the ball. The other team missed a kick. The Chiefs blocked a kick or they made a kick. And you sit there and it's almost like you're dumbfounded as to how the Kansas City Chiefs won that game. You know what the Kansas City Chiefs have that the Buffalo Bills don't have, that the Baltimore Ravens don't have, that the Detroit Lions don't have, just to name a few? Well, the strength of their team is actually their defense, which is crazy to say. You look at Buffalo, who's the first player you think of? What's the first side of the ball you think of? Offense, Josh Allen. You look at the Baltimore Ravens, who do you think of? Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. You look at the Detroit Lions, you look at that offense with Ben Johnson and Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. You look at the Eagles. I know their defense has been really damn good this year. I know the Philadelphia Eagles defense has been improving under Vic Fangio, but you think of Saquon Barkley, you think of A.J. Brown, you think of Jalen Hurts. So you look at Kansas City, and this is the crazy part of really their last two Super Bowls. We have talked about, the Chiefs look sloppy. Mahomes in the regular season, we know he's going to put it together in the postseason, but man, they don't really have weapons around them, and they're looking like they could get beat. That's what we've all heard. And you look at that Chiefs defense, week in and week out, they show up, and Steve Spagnuolo, who I don't think will ever get a head coaching job again, I think he should, but Steve Spagnuolo could go down as one of the greatest coordinators that the game has ever seen. If you think about the Super Bowl that he won with the Giants and now the three defenses that he's led to Lombardi trophies in Kansas City. I get it. Pittsburgh, they are not the 2007 New England Patriots when it comes to offense, okay? They are not Peyton Manning throwing to Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison, right? They are not the greatest show on turf, but only 10 points you could put up on the scoreboard yesterday? Only 10? And this just speaks to how well-rounded and how great the Chiefs defense is. And that's what I've been saying with the Chiefs. Even though, right, there have been some weeks where you go, Buffalo's better. All right, even weeks where you say, the Ravens are better. Or, the Lions, it's their year. The Eagles, it's their year. Maybe even the Minnesota Vikings, it's their year. You look at Kansas City, it's the scariest thing in the NFL. that their best side of the ball is their defense. So when Mahomes and Kelsey heat up, when you get back an Isaiah Pacheco, when you have a Kareem Hunt, when you have old man DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, it just goes on and on and on and on. Like, is there a flaw with the Kansas City Chiefs? Outside of the fact that their offensive line's been banged up. Oh, you have Joe Tooney, who, by the way, could play any position on the offensive line. You got to slide him out to left tackle. This team, there is not a flaw, and the biggest thing that they have going for them is their best player and the league's best player is not even a part of their best side of the football, which is just wild. So I look at it when I'm watching the game up against the Steelers, and I see the Chiefs officially clinch the number 1 seed. I see that they're 15-1. Even through all their vulnerabilities, they're 15-1. And I sat back there and I said, okay, Zach, you've seen this before. Who's your favorite football team? Oh, it's the Patriots. How many years when the Patriots maybe stumbled out of the gate or it didn't look like that clean of a product, you had dopes that were just hoping for the demise of the Patriots that would get on the radio, that would get on TV and would be like, oh, they're there for the taking. Oh, they're vulnerable. Oh, they're not good anymore. And a lot of those years, the Patriots made those people that questioned them look like absolute morons. And don't get me wrong, I've been one of those morons. I've been one of those people that have said, you know what? I like the Eagles to beat them in a Super Bowl. You know what? This is San Francisco's year. Oh, look at what Buffalo has been able to do with Josh Allen. Look at Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. Don't get me wrong. And it's maybe not because I was using my best analysis cap. It's maybe because I wasn't thinking with my brain. It's because I wanted them to lose. All right, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I wanted the Kansas City Chiefs to lose. But yesterday when I'm watching the Chiefs up against the Steelers and how originally, right, there's just so much animosity with the Patriot fan base and the Chiefs fan base because for 20 years we were the standard and now the Chiefs have basically become us. I can't hate this team. Mahomes is awesome. Kelsey is awesome. You know, Spagnuolo and Andy Reid, phenomenal 1-2 punch. I can't hate this team. And I look at Kansas City, and I'm not saying that the light bulb went off yesterday because we all knew that they were damn good and they were going to be so tough. But this team, which it's scary, and I said this at times with other teams last year, I still don't even think they've played their best brand of football yet. So if there's a different gear that the Chiefs can get to, and they're already running out to a head start, 15-1, and they're not going to be playing Wild Card Weekend, I think you'd be a fool right now to say that a team other than Kansas City's going to a Super Bowl. Like, don't get me wrong. There's only 2 other teams in the AFC that could prevent Kansas City from going to the Super Bowl. It's the Buffalo Bills, who the Buffalo Bills, I think they've beat the Chiefs the last 3 or 4 times in the regular season, but they haven't got the job done once in the postseason. We saw what the Baltimore Ravens were able to do back in week 1. If Likely gets that other foot down, they're probably going to go for 2 and they have a chance to win the game. But here's what's making it awesome. Here's what's making it fun too. The Kansas City Chiefs, right, are the force. They're the number 1 team until someone, for a year, takes away their Superman cape. And they're the team that we're going to expect to fly to New Orleans and once again be sitting there on the 50-yard line or the end zone where they're going to hand out the Lombardi Trophy with another Lombardi Trophy. But when you look at what we've seen now, and you also saw the Ravens and the Texans play yesterday, where just like the Steelers, they're going nowhere this year. The Texans are going nowhere either this year. They'll be in the playoffs. At most, they'll win a playoff game, and then they'll be home. All right? They're not going to a conference championship game. But you see the dominance of Lamar and Derrick Henry with the Ravens. You've also seen, right, the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, and I still think he'll win the MVP, but then now that's up for debate, have his signature season in the league. And I just sit there yesterday when I'm thinking about the state of the AFC, when you could truly only see 3 teams go to the Super Bowl in Kansas City, in Buffalo, or the Baltimore Ravens. And I say to myself, think about the theater that we're going to have. And it's actually a shame that a team like Buffalo or Baltimore couldn't get the number 1 overall seed and didn't get the number 1 overall seed. Because imagine if the Chiefs would have to go through, let's say, the Ravens in the divisional round and then the Bills in the conference championship game. With the way that for this year only individually, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are outperforming statistically Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. But this is what's going to happen, barring any upset. Barring any upset, barring any surprise, you will see the Ravens and the Bills, right, in all likelihood be the 2-3 in the AFC. They'll be going up against probably in Buffalo. You have the Ravens going to the Bills in Buffalo divisional round weekend. And then the winner of that game, you know what you get? You get the right to go to Kansas City and try to be our savior. Try to eliminate Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And maybe this is the year where Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen have their early 2000 Peyton Manning moment. Maybe this is the year. Because Mahomes, Brady, the Chiefs are the Patriots. That's what they are. And when New England won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, Manning could never beat them. Never. Ty Law picking them off 3 times in a game. You know, Rodney Harrison with the big interception in the end zone and flying around in the end zone celebrating in the snow. But could this be the year of 2006 in 2024, soon to be 2025, when Peyton Manning was able to get the job done up against Tom Brady? And if Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen can't get it done this year, with the way that they're playing, and they're looking like the 2 best quarterbacks in the league right now statistically, when are we ever going to get this done? Because if it doesn't happen this year, if Kansas City isn't slayed this year, we're going to be hopeless. There will be no reason to tangibly believe, regardless of what happens in the regular season, for the foreseeable future, if either the Bills or the Ravens can't get it done this year, for us to even entertain next year Kansas City going down until they actually go down. So, not that I really learned that yesterday, but you start to see the path, you start to see the road, knowing the Chiefs have locked up the number 1 seed. Everyone else in the AFC is not having the capabilities of being great besides Buffalo and besides the Baltimore Ravens. And if it all goes according to plan, Bills will play the Ravens in the divisional round. The winner of that one will then go to Kansas City, barring some upset, which upsets happen, right? We've seen the Patriots, when they were the Patriots, get surprisingly upset by the Jets on divisional round weekend. Like, years like that happen. But if it goes the way that we expect those dominoes to fall, Bills, Ravens, 1 team will remain, and then they'll go to Kansas City, and we'll see if we could find a way for Patrick Mahomes not to be in another Super Bowl. But when I watch the Chiefs, I'm still amazed at their defense. I really am, and that's the best unit on their team. Hot Take Hickey is here with us today, producing this extravaganza along with Samter all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern time. Hickey, I know that you have questioned the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens throughout the years, and you have been someone, and many of your wrong predictions, something that you always get right, has been the Kansas City Chiefs, where you refuse to doubt them. You refuse to do so until they are slayed. I'm assuming that until someone takes down Kansas City this year, you're not going to believe either the Ravens or Bills will actually do it.
That is correct. Last year, I thought the Ravens at home would slay the Dragon, and that was the last time for the foreseeable future I will pick against the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Who has the better chance to do so, in your opinion? If you're saying going into Kansas City and win, is it the Bills or is it the Ravens?
I think the Ravens. With Lamar's elusive ability and his ability to throw the ball, I think it's Derrick Henry can ride that, establish a run game, wear down that Kansas City defense, hold the ball, keep Mahomes on the sideline. And their run defense for Baltimore is solid. If you can make the Chiefs one-dimensional, it just helps. You're not going to stop them completely, but it helps slow down that offense right now. I think Baltimore is more well-rounded and better built to go into Arrowhead than Buffalo.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll ask you that question at 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Do you believe the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl? Right now, I do. Also, who do you think has the better chance to take down Kansas City? Is it the Baltimore Ravens or is it the Buffalo Bills? And by the way, I don't think anyone should be surprised by what we saw yesterday by the Steelers. But 18 days ago, this team was 10-3. Since then, they've had 3 straight losses where they go down to not only the Eagles, but then the Ravens, and then the Chiefs. And this team, if like you're a Steelers fan, you got to be sick to your stomach because you are tied for the most Super Bowl championships ever with 6 for an individual franchise. And your team, since they lost to the Patriots in January of 2017 in the AFC Championship game, has been nowhere actually close to contending for a Super Bowl again. And this team, how they have not been able to figure out the offensive side of the ball is beyond me. And if you're going to go give Russell Wilson, who has had a nice season, a 3 or 4 year contract, what the heck are you doing? And also, I don't know about you, Hickey, and I like players that play with emotion, but sometimes there's too much emotion. I can't watch George Pickens. I can't anymore. He is a really damn good player, but he thinks he's the greatest wide receiver of all time. He makes one catch, he acts like he's winning a Super Bowl. And then the moment he doesn't make a catch, or the moment he drops a football, or the moment the ball isn't thrown directly to him, he's bitching to the officials every time. You know, I could not watch George Pickens yesterday. I thought he was absolutely insufferable, Ryan.
I'm with you. And it gets to the point where it's like, if you're the Steelers, like, how much longer can you put up with it? Because he's too inconsistent.
They suck without him.
I know. I mean, that's
that offense, when he was gone for 2 games, they looked like they were, what a Chicago Bears offense usually looks like. Terrible.
Or the Colts offense, what it looks like sometimes. You're right. I don't know what it is. These moody receivers that have big egos that just cause problems. The Steelers love them.
And I'm not saying the Texans are the team that I'm the most disappointed in, by the way, just going back to the Ravens-Texans game. Because the 49ers and the Bengals are probably the two most, assuming that the Bengals don't find a way somehow to get into the postseason. But the Texans, with the offseason that they've had, and what they showed last year, how they were not able to take the next step. How they were not able to take that next step this year, and how flat C.J. Stroud, I don't know if he's getting coached by Ryan Day again, but how flat he's been able to be in these big games, man, it is a rough watch. For a guy last year, Hickey, who exceeded all expectations and was really the talk of the league, and now, you know who's basically swapped spots with? Jaden Daniels. Like, the way that we talked about C.J. Stroud last year is how we're talking about Jaden Daniels this year, where you had that franchise that's down and out, then Daniels breaks out, just like how Stroud did break out. They're being told they're the guy in this quarterback class, and I just hope the Commanders, they could take that next step next year, even before this season's even over, because we thought the Texans were going in that spot, and the Texans, if they're playing in conference championship weekend, I'd be shocked. Heck, I don't even know if they'll be playing in divisional round weekend like they were last year. It's kind of crazy.
I'm with you, and same thing as well with Bobby Sloak, right? He was the next hot thing. He's going to be a head coach. Now, all of a sudden, he's coming under fire, rightfully so. This is a big offseason for him. They got to figure a lot of stuff out going into 2025.
All righty, Zach Gelb here with you on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take your calls after this, 855-212-4227. Also, we'll go through all 4 of the college football playoff matchups. Who has the most to gain if you pick an individual from one of those games between Boise State, Penn State, Texas, Arizona State, Ohio State, Oregon, and Notre Dame and Georgia. We'll take a timeout, coming on back in 5 minutes. Football season is in full swing, and you can take full advantage by winning some cash with Sleeper Picks. Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less than at least 2 of your favorite player stats. If you're right, you could win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. For a limited time, Sleeper has a special offer. New users just have to play $5, and they'll receive $55 in free bonus entries. That's right. If you deposit $25 and play $5, they'll give you 11 $5 bonus entries to start playing. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE and get in on this promo before time runs out. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and unlock one of the fastest growing fantasy sports apps in the world. Use code SCORE to claim the play $5, get $55 bonus entry offer. That's code SCORE. Must be at least 18 years old in most states and present in state where it is legal to wager. Promo code location and other restrictions apply. Minimum deposit $25. See terms used for details at sleeper.com. Please play responsibly. Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Sponsored by Sleeper, a Blitz product.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, getting closer and closer to the college football playoff, picking back up as we're down to 8 teams on New Year's Eve. You'll have Penn State going up against Boise State at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then on New Year's Day, Texas, Arizona State will get us started at 1 p.m. Eastern. At 5 p.m. Eastern, the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl between Ohio State and Oregon, and then at night, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, Notre Dame and Georgia. Hickey, refresh my memory. Your girlfriend, she is not a Penn Stater, but you are a Penn Stater, obviously.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
So
She's
what
a
does
blue
that
hen.
what does that make for your New Year's Eve plans? Has she been causing any problems in terms of, we got to do something for New Year's Eve when she knows that you have to watch the game?
She's actually not a big New Year's Eve fan in general, which works to my advantage. She's actually working on New Year's Eve during the day, another thing to my advantage. So we don't have any plans yet. It will be more low-key, which means I should have control of where we are and how we're watching the game. So I'm very excited.
All right, that's good. How was your Christmas, by the way? Because I know that your dad is, what, one of 10?
He's the oldest of 10.
10, jeez. So
That's right.
how many hickeys did we have under one roof the other day?
It was a scaled-down event this year, maybe about 30-ish, roughly, compared to like mid-40s that we usually have. So
only 30.
Only
How do
30
you
this
feed
year.
that many people, by the way?
A lot of food, a lot of catering.
So you did Christmas, what was it, Eve or Christmas Day with everyone?
Christmas Eve is always our big day.
Okay, so you do the 7 fishes or anything like that?
No. My family's very Irish. So while some like seafood, we stay away from the 7 fishes. So
Gotcha.
Very simple. Mac and cheese, chicken fingers. It's a very simple setting here,
okay,
food-wise.
Did you watch any movies, just wondering?
No, we were locked in on the Hawaii Bowl.
Oh, were you?
We were.
Okay.
San Jose State did not do many of my cousins or uncles very favors.
Oh, a lot of betting that was going on.
Yeah, they're not too big fans right now of Ken Niumatalolo.
Oh, okay. I like Ken Niumatalolo.
So do I, up until New Year's Eve.
Until that game.
Christmas Eve.
I watched a few Netflix. I watched 2 Netflix shows and then an E60. So I watched the movie Carry On, which supposedly has been so hyped and has been such like a movie that's been waiting in great anticipation. I didn't know that was the case. I literally went on Netflix. It was like top hits. I watched it. I thought it was pretty solid. Like a 7-8, I would say, out of 10. And now I didn't have these high expectations. I saw our buddy Moist Pork. He was chiming on in. I heard the movie hasn't met up to the hype. And I go, well, there was no hype for me. I just watched it and it was enjoyable and it killed 2 hours on in the nighttime of Christmas Day. So I was enjoying Carry On. Now, I watched the E60 on our colleague Boomer Esiason and his son Gunnar Esiason with Gunnar's entire battle with cystic fibrosis. I thought it was tremendous. I thought it was really well done. I highly recommend it. About 45 minutes or so. So not a long, really, commitment, but 45 minutes. I thought it was really good, and it kind of highlights the bond between a father and son and how dad would do anything for son and son would do anything for dad. So I thought that was pretty damn cool. And then, you know what I finally got to? So I took a late train in last night to get back into the city. And on the train, I watched the first episode of 3 of the Aaron Rodgers Netflix doc. Now, Hickey, I know you're not a big fan of Aaron Rodgers, but have you watched the what is it called? Enigma. Have you watched that, by the way?
I have not, no, and I really have no interest.
So I had 0 interest.
Okay.
And I said to myself, you know what? I have an hour to kill on the train. I'll watch it. I'll see if I like it on my phone. 5 minutes in, I was annoyed. 5 minutes in. So they use an interview from our show with Marquez Valdez-Scantling in studio talking about how great of a teammate Aaron Rodgers is. You know, thing went viral and McAfee was playing, went all over the place. This over the summer at some point. Supposedly, from what a source close to the situation told me, MVS wasn't thrilled with me that day, which I have no clue why. It was a softball interview. It was the day after, I think the whole Rashee Rice situation happened, so I asked him one question about that, so maybe his feelings were hurt. The fact that I asked him about it, I don't know. I'm a terrible human being for doing that. But it was the most positive pub up until this year that Marquez Valdez-Scantling may have got ever. Millions and millions of people were talking about him, saying Rodgers some great teammate. And then it makes it into the documentary. But you know what? I'm very annoyed at the folks at Netflix. No on-screen credit, no mention period, until the end when the credits are rolling up and they just go Odyssey courtesy, audio courtesy of Odyssey. Not even all these other shows. Dan Patrick, Pat McAfee. They're also crediting Dan Lebitard with Stu Gatz. All of them get full mentions. Zach Gelb, little old me, just sitting here, making headlines, making news, getting mentioned, right? Our interview, first 5 minutes into the whole documentary. And they can't even put a little mention out. Zach Gelb Show, at the time, CBS Sports Radio or via Odyssey. No mention whatsoever. Now, that being said, I highly recommend it. I've watched the 2 episodes. There's one more. It's just interesting. It is very, very interesting when you see the way that they portray Aaron Rodgers. So enough talking about Aaron Rodgers, because I talked about him last week with the whole Ryan Clark stuff, and I still get people that are tweeting me, how many vaccine shots did you get? What are your politics? Oh, you hate America. Even though 2 weeks ago I was in an American flag full suit at Army Navy Radio Row. But yes, I hate America. Yeah, you just give an opinion about a little back and forth between Ryan Clark and Aaron Rodgers, and then you're the big bad guy. So anyway, let's advance to this because I know that you're waiting in great anticipation for the college football playoff. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1, no nerves, 10, all the nerves in the world that you're afraid that James Franklin's going to mess this game up. How nervous are you when it comes to Penn State losing to Boise State in the college football playoff?
4.
4. Okay.
4.
So a little slight than 50-50.
Yeah, I feel very confident, but I feel pretty confident going in again. Genty's a tough running back, but I'll say 4 to 10.
Okay. When I look at Boise and Penn State, I think the person with the most to gain in this, we'll go back and forth. I'll give one, then you'll give one of the matchup. I think the person with the most to gain nationally is actually someone on Boise State. And it's someone that doesn't get mentioned enough in the national landscape, and that's their head football coach in Spencer Danielson. In the last year and a half since taking over that gig, he's won 2 conference championships, and he's had a Heisman Trophy finalist, somehow got Ashton Genty to stay this offseason, and is now in the college football playoff in the first ever 12-team college football playoff, and somehow got a bye. Made the decision to go with Maddox Matson over Malachi Nelson, who was the big quarterback coming over from USC. And this team, their only loss of the season was to Oregon, who's the number 1 team in the country. And quite frankly, Boise State should have won that game if you were actually watching that game. So I look at the national landscape, the most to gain. Like, I'm thinking about it. If Penn State wins this game, I don't think many people are going to be sitting there throwing bouquets at Penn State because a lot of people said, they had the easiest road to get there with SMU and Boise State. Genty's already got all the flowers thrown his way. So at this point, it's just a cherry on top of the sundae. But if Danielson wins this one, you start talking about him being one of the better, young, up-and-coming hot names in the college football game with what he's been able to do for a year and a half. The fact that they already have a bye and they're in the college football playoff, maybe more so than the fact they have a bye, because before the year it wasn't inconceivable that Boise State could get into the CFP. But if they could find themselves in the final 4 teams remaining, then, geez, that dude's stock is going to just be booming. And I mean absolutely booming for one Spencer Danielson. So that's the person I look to, individual from Boise State or Penn State with the most to gain. It's Spencer Danielson. Yourself?
That's a very good one. And a lot of what you said I agree with, which is why I'm going to go with Penn State running back Nick Singleton. The other running back, Ashton Genty, rightfully so, is going to get all the attention. If Nick Singleton, who is fast, powerful, explosive, elusive, if he can outrush Genty, have a better game than for a guy that I thought should have won the Heisman Trophy, he probably is going to go to the draft. Won't be drafted, let's say, high, which means he could go to a good team. And I think he could, if in the right offense when he's healthy, he could be one of those breakout rookies no one kind of is talking about now, but a year from now, it's like, wow, what a steal this team got. I'll go Nick Singleton here.
All right, let's advance it to New Year's Day, Texas and Arizona State. I think it's Quinn Ewers. It's weird because Texas only lost 2 games this year. And you look at the quarterback draft conversation, it's really just been Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And everybody else that's been thrown into kind of that conversation, a lot of people have soured on. Where I don't even know who people now consider the 3rd best quarterback in this upcoming draft class. There are some thoughts that Quinn Ewers could transfer. I don't think he's coming back. I think they're ready to hand the baton over to Arch Manning. But there have been moments this year where, heck, even the first time they went up against Georgia, where they benched Quinn Ewers for 2 drives and they handed the baton over to Arch Manning. But it didn't really matter who was going up against Georgia that day before then Quinn Ewers got thrown back into the game. So Ewers has not been bad this year, but where he was in the beginning of the season, people were talking about him after that performance against Michigan. Now it's going back to like week 2 or 3, Heisman, and he hasn't met that level. Quinn Ewers, if he gets a victory up against Arizona State, I'm not saying it's going to catapult him all the way to this spot, but if he goes out there and just dominates Arizona State, and I expect this to be a high-octane offense type of game, where he's throwing like 4 or 5, maybe even, dare I say it, 6 touchdown passes in this one. You know how this could change very quickly with how many more eyes end up watching this time of the year, and maybe he could start to restore some confidence in the individual abilities of Quinn Ewers. So I think many people right now look and just say, it's a fine quarterback, good quarterback, has had some success the last 2 years, obviously, at Texas. But when I watch him, I'm left wanting a little bit more from Quinn Ewers. So I think between Texas and Arizona State, Quinn Ewers is the one with the most to gain.
A lot of what you said for Spencer Danielson, I'm going to apply here to Kenny Dillingham of Arizona State.
Love it.
where if he's able to beat Texas, a team that a lot of people were picking to win the national title this year, with Arizona State, a team that was picked last in the Big 12, I think you can almost start to maybe conjure up some Oklahoma thoughts for Arizona State, where maybe they could be in most years the team to be in the Big 12. He's a young coach. He's a good coach. He has connections there. So if he doesn't want to leave and go to a bigger school, he could stay and make Arizona State a power in the Big 12. Give me Kenny Dillingham here most of the game.
And he has the personality, too.
Fiery.
That dude is an NIL machine, an absolute machine, and he is made for this new era of younger coaches to really navigate this name, image, and likeness and transfer portal era in college football. Ohio State and Oregon. I'm actually surprised I didn't go Ryan Day here. I really am. But I'm going Dylan Gabriel for the same thing that I just said with Quinn Ewers. People like easy comparisons. Bo Nix, if you would have told me this time last year he would have been the 12th overall pick of the draft, I would have said you're crazy. And I thought Dylan Gabriel was a better quarterback going into Oregon than Bo Nix was. And we're talking about that third potential spot available in the draft where Shedeur and also Cam Ward are going to be the first two quarterbacks. With the career that Dylan Gabriel's had, where I think a lot of people think he's just more college quarterbacky and kind of describe him the same way that they did with Bo Nix, even though Gabriel's a little bit smaller. He goes and beats now Ohio State twice. And his best game of the season, I thought individually, was up against Ohio State the first time. That could be a dude that has one of those. It's weird to say a guy that, he needs to rise, but I would say right now, if you put a gun to my head, he's a second-round pick. He could go into the first round and maybe higher than what we expect if he goes out there and beats Ohio State twice in a season to maintain being undefeated and being the best team in the nation. So I go with Dylan Gabriel between Ohio State and Oregon.
You didn't go Ryan Day, I will. Yeah. This guy was crucified basically after the Michigan game.
Deservedly so.
And fair. If you can play your best game of the year, which is what they did against Tennessee and blow them out, and now beat Oregon, and you look at your path, this is probably the toughest team Ohio State has to face in order to win a national title, I think you're rolling towards a national championship here, which I think would change the opinions of a lot of people about Ryan Day. He has the most to gain.
And if you look at the road for Ryan Day, you beat Tennessee, then you beat Oregon, let's say. Mm-hmm. Then you would get the winner of Texas, Arizona State, if it's Texas. And then let's say Georgia or Notre Dame's waiting there in the national championship game. I'm not going to give you Penn State. You just know that's not happening here. You talk about brands and slaying. That would be something for Ryan Day. But I don't think he's got the mental toughness to do so. All righty, Notre Dame and Georgia. Marcus Freeman for me. He needs a signature victory at Notre Dame. And I know that you beat Indiana. To me, no one ever thought you were going to lose to Indiana. Notre Dame has been stuck, kind of like how the Steelers have been stuck, where you win a lot of games, you're really good, but then you get into the big games and you can't get the job done. This is that moment for Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, who just got a brand new extension, so he's not going anywhere even if he loses. But you're going up against Georgia, who's the standard still in college football, and also Georgia, who's playing with a backup quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. So give me Marcus Freeman in this one.
This is going to sound crazy. I'm actually going to go Kirby Smart here, in part because you're playing now, like you said, Gunnar Stockton making his first career start. In terms of execution, this has been the worst Georgia team we've seen in a few years now under Kirby, where they just can't run the ball, they can't catch the ball. Defensively, in some big games, they've just gotten toasted. If you can beat Notre Dame...
And they still won the SEC.
And they still won the SEC.
They're the Chiefs.
And exactly right, but that means that if you can win 3 out of 4, right, and at least beating Notre Dame gets you closer to that, I think you're starting to enter Saban territory.
Ooh.
Where you're not just the greatest coach right now in college football, you're on the path to being one of the greatest ever. And if you could do it in what would be normally a quote-unquote down year for Georgia, I think it only just adds more ammo to that.
We'll take a break. When we come on back, will they be back? We got a bunch of names in the NFL. Will they be back with their current team? We'll get to that on the other side. But first up, I always thought her name was Erica Herskowitz. But then I heard it today as Erica Herskovitz. So now I'm very confused. I don't even know. I thought she's my radio godmother. I thought I knew what her last name is. So here is who I still think is Erica Herskowitz. But I could be wrong on that. I don't know, depending if you listened to the network earlier today with the latest Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
Zach, keep listening. They say my name like 20,000 different ways with all the different hosts on this network, so it's really fun for me.
They need to be better, Erica. They need to be better.
Do better.
I'm not taking it anymore.
They need to do better. Thank you. I'm so famous. I mean, everyone says my name all different ways. College bowl season rolling on. Few lesser-known bowl games on tap, Zach. Starting in Detroit right now. Pitt taking on Toledo in the Game Above Bowl. Late second quarter, Toledo's in front 20-12. Tonight, Rutgers and Kansas State meet in the Rate Bowl in Phoenix. Arkansas State plays Bowling Green in the 68 Ventures Bowl in Alabama. From college basketball, longtime Miami head coach Jim Larrañaga is reportedly stepping down after 14 seasons at the helm. Week 17 in the NFL, Thursday Night Football tonight has the Seahawks visiting the Bears at Soldier Field. And coming off back-to-back losses, Seattle trails the NFC West, leading Rams by 1 game with 2 to play. Kickoff 8:15 Eastern. Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts didn't practice yesterday, putting his status for Sunday's game against the Cowboys in question with a concussion and a finger injury. And reports say that quarterback Teddy Bridgewater is coming out of retirement to play for the Lions. I'm Erica Herskowitz.
Hey, sports fans, Andrew Perloff here on the Infinity Sports Network. Check us out 24/7 on SiriusXM Channel 158.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
And this portion of the show is sponsored by the new 2025 Hyundai Tucson Hybrid that has class-leading advanced safety features like the available blind spot view monitor to make your ride more enjoyable. Hickey has identified a few names, and I will tell you if I think they're going to be back come the 2025 season with their current team. Name number one.
Let's start with Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers.
I don't think he should. But I think the Jets will bring him back. And I think whoever they bring in as the new coach and the new general manager, they're going to inherit Rodgers for one more season. I don't think they should, though. I would not do it, but I think they will bring him back.
What about Steelers quarterback danger, Russ Wilson?
No. 3-4 weeks ago, I would have said so. But if you're going to go give this guy the Baker Mayfield contract, which is like 3 years, $100 million, I think you're crazy. Because you've been stuck for so many years on just being good and not great. And Russ has done a nice job this year. He has played some good football. But I'm not going to give him a crazy investment. Make him take less because of how much money he has made from the Denver Broncos. I know he's only playing for $1.5 million this year. But personally, I'd rather see Justin Fields under center next year for an entire season than Russell Wilson if you're going to have to go overpay for him.
Will Sam Darnold be back in Minnesota next year?
I don't think so. I think Ben Lieber hit the nail right in the head with us the other day when he joined us, and he said, I think they're going to hand the baton over to J.J. McCarthy and just build around him with the roster that they have, and they're going to look to save some money on that rookie contract with Sam Darnold probably going to get 35 to 40, maybe even north of that $1 million a year.
Let's talk about a few head coaches' futures. What about Giants head coach Brian Daboll? Is he back with the G-Men next year?
For most of the year, I thought so. I just said just as long as it's not getting to a part where you're bad, but it's not embarrassing. This is now past embarrassing. We're in week 17 right now. They haven't won a home game all year. I think him and Joe Shane are both out. But if you're going to bring them back, you give them 2 more years because you want to have some continuity with that staff, with the quarterback that you're going to be drafting. But I think they're going to get rid of both just because it's gotten so ugly here.
Will Antonio Pierce be back with the Raiders next year?
Everyone thinks that he's gone. I feel like I'm on an island. I believe Antonio Pierce is going to be back for another season with the silver and black. I think Antonio Pierce will be back next year.
What about your guy, Gerard Mayo?
I like Gerard Mayo as a player. As a coach, he needs to win me over. I don't usually advocate for one and dones, but I would get rid of his ass right now to go bring in Mike Vrabel. But I think Gerard Mayo will be back with the New England Patriots.
Is there any chance Doug Peterson is back in Jacksonville next year?
What do you think on that one?
No.
I don't think so either. Maybe it's just out of respect why they still have kept him around and they had to get rid of Urban Meyer in season. But I'm going to say Doug Peterson is out as well. But I'm kind of surprised he hasn't already been out as the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The contract could say yes, but what do you say about Deshaun Watson's future in Cleveland?
I would get rid of him. If I am running the Browns, I'm getting rid of the stench that is Deshaun Watson. But the Browns do stupid things because incompetent organizations make incompetent decisions, and they'll make an incompetent decision bringing back Deshaun Watson when they should move on.
Does the future of Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy have him back in Big D next year?
If I said this a month ago, I would punch myself in the face because I wouldn't have believed it. I would say you're lying. You're just doing it for clicks. But now I fully believe Mike McCarthy with Bill Belichick off to UNC. They're not going to get Ben Johnson. I don't think they're going to get Mike Vrabel. I think both those guys are going to go elsewhere. And this team is still playing hard for McCarthy, especially the last 4 or 5 games. I do think Big Mike McCarthy is back for another go-around with the 2-year contract extension. So basically a year from now, we'll do the whole lame duck thing all over again. But I do think Mike McCarthy is back.
Let's finish with 2 quarterbacks, one young, one old. Let's start age first here. What about Matthew Stafford? Is he back in L.A. next year?
The only way he's not, I think, is if he retires. Is that a possibility? I think so. But ultimately, I do not believe we've seen the last of Matthew Stafford. I'm going to say he's back with the Rams next year.
And finally, has Bryce Young played his way into seeing year 3 in Carolina?
I don't even think this is a question. Absolutely. Who would have thought that when he was benched? But 1,000% he will be their starting quarterback as long as he's healthy come week 1 of 2025. All right, we can fade out the music. 855-212-4227. Let me go to Billy Ray in California. Wants to chime in on this Bears and Pete Carroll report. Billy Ray, what's shaking?
How we living out there? Lay them down on the flip side.
You got it. What do you got cooking?
So here's the thing, man. I mean, the Bears made a big mistake when they didn't go after Jim Harbaugh when they had a chance because he was a winning Bears quarterback and he could have developed a winning Bears quarterback in Caleb Williams. Now, with this reports about Pete Carroll, they only coming from Pete Carroll's camp. The Bears ain't said nothing about their interest in Pete Carroll. What do you have to say about that?
I don't expect them to say anything right now. That's for number one and for starters. I would be interested in Pete Carroll because even though he's 72 or 73, the guy still looks like he's 53. You know, he is a young guy in his he looks and acts like a young guy even in his early 70s. If the Bears could get Pete Carroll, and I think that Pete is obviously interested because Billy Ray is right. This is a Pete Carroll-driven report is my best guess on this one. Then I would be okay with it. But I still think the safest hire, and we'll talk more about this coming up in 25 minutes, I still think the safest hire for them is Mike Vrabel. But the guy I think they're going to try to go get first is Ben Johnson. Now, Ben Johnson is a peculiar cat. So if Ben Johnson says, I'm going to pass and I'm going to go back to the Lions just like he did with the Commanders, and you get that happen another year, is Vrabel already scooped up by then? But the Bears, they can't fumble this one. They can. Because they're the Bears. But this is the biggest hire that they've had in probably the history of their franchise. Because if you ruin Caleb Williams, why should I ever believe that the Bears will ever be able to get a franchise quarterback? So more on the Bears coming up 25 minutes from now. But when we come on back, Christian Hackenberg's going to join us to talk a little college football playoff as we have 8 teams remaining.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Coming up on New Year's Eve, we will have the college football playoff resume back up. You'll see Boise State up against Penn State. And then on New Year's Day, you have Texas, Arizona State, Ohio State up against Oregon, and Notre Dame going up against Georgia. Let's talk about the first matchup and then some with former Penn State quarterback, friend of the radio show, and that, of course, is Christian Hackenberg. Christian, appreciate the time as always. How you been, my friend?
I've been good, brother. Thanks for calling me in again, man. Stoked to talk about this a little bit, chop it up.
So let me start you off, and appreciate you coming on with Drew Aller. I was just saying this before we brought you on. He is, like, unintentionally polarizing. Like, really good kid. You know, comes from a good background, right? Really hardworking, says all the right things, but the analysis is all over the place when people evaluate his game. I really liked what he showed in the Big Ten championship game. I thought his best moment was the second half up against USC earlier in the year. Where's your evaluation right now on the Penn State quarterback?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I think you and I talked about it before the season, or at least I talked to some folks about it before the season. I mean, he's shown me some things. For me, it's always been more of the intangible side. I think when it just comes down to throwing the football from point A to point B, he has everything that you're looking for. And on tape, he's put things in terms of mobility and pocket movement and stuff like that that definitely checks all the boxes. But there's always that little something, like Baker has it, like these guys have it in terms of when the lights are brightest. Those guys are making plays consistently, and they're making not only their team better, but their individual players around them better, like kind of raising the floor for everybody. And Drew's done some of that this year, but maybe some of it's just he's not being asked to do it as much. I don't know, but I think that's my only missing piece with Drew when I'm evaluating him. Like, is he a guy who can come in and be the face of my franchise? And to your point, it's not about saying all the right things and doing it publicly. It's more so about in that locker room. Can he get those guys to want to play for him? And do they believe that he's the guy who can make a difference in a game? And I still think that a lot of that, at least from a consistency standpoint, is to be seen yet.
Now, how confident are you with this team? Because I understand, right, they've made it to the Final Eight. You look at this squad, they got some big-time players with an Abdul Carter and also Tyler Warren. We've seen the growth, and there's still room to continue to grow, as we were talking about with Drew Allers. Christian Hackenberg's here with us. But this is a team that, they haven't had a big victory yet this year. Oregon, they lost. Ohio State, they lost. And now you're still 3 wins away from somehow getting a national championship. Your confidence with this group is where right now?
Listen, I think that there's some deficiencies in the team. Obviously, we don't have to dive too far into that, but they got some really good football players. And I think they're deep enough. If the game can play into kind of how this team's built, and I think it's really good defense. Offense doesn't necessarily have to get into a track meet. If they get into a track meet, they've proven they could do it a little bit, but I don't think it's a consistent thing. I don't think they have enough weapons. They need to be able to run the football. And to do that, you can't be in too big of a hole. So, listen, the path is pretty clean. And I think you could say the same for like a Texas path, and, that kind of is out of their control. So to me, they just need to continue to do what they've done up until this point, handling SMU. They're going into this matchup, like, what is it, a 14.5-point favorite or something like that, somewhere in that ballpark. So then you're going to have a chance against a Georgia or a Notre Dame, and then, continue to hopefully get over that hump of beating a football team that you're not necessarily going to be favored by at least a touchdown on. So I'm confident they'll at least get to that. And then I think that there's some things that we'll see in terms of how the game's called, who steps up, who starts to get used a little more. Is there a little bit more creativity with some shots and things like that in there, at least offensively, that gives me confidence they could do it against the Georgias and the big dogs of the world. So, I'm cautiously optimistic, and most of that is because of the path. I mean, it's a very light path, and we don't have to continue to beat that drum.
Christian Hackenberg here with us. On the other side, everyone's going to talk about Ashton Jeanty. I've watched almost every one of his snaps this year. We all know the incredible talent he is. But I actually think if Boise State's going to win this game, it's going to come down to Maddox Madsen, because I don't know if Penn State will be able to stop Jeanty, because no one has this year. But this is not a dude that's turned over the football a lot. He's had some risky throws, but they've been dropped down the stretch if you watch the last few games of the season. But if he could just be efficient in this one and manage the game, then I think we're going to have a game that comes right down to the wire. What's your read from afar on Maddox Madsen?
Yeah, same thing. I think a lot of that's beneficial because he has Jeanty behind him. At the end of the day, you're asked not to turn the football over when you're in the position to turn around and hand it off to a guy like that. But he's done a good job of doing that up into this point. And I think for Penn State, like you said, that's kind of who they want to force to beat them. So I agree with your synopsis. Like, Jeanty's still going to get his at some point throughout this game. But similar to how that SMU game played out, if Penn State wants to have a chance to do what Vegas is at least predicting them to do, they need to slow him down enough and get enough of a lead to where Boise State has to put more of that workload on Maddox and less on Jeanty and start chasing some points. But yeah, I think they feel comfortable with that, though. Penn State's got a great D line. Their rush is phenomenal, and I feel really confident about their back end. Obviously, big storyline, their linebackers played well, but I still think that's if I'm coming in game planning against Penn State, that's the area of their defense I'm trying to exploit is their linebackers. I think that's a group that has a high ceiling, but just hasn't played consistently enough to give me confidence in their ability to be difference makers consistently in a football game.
Is there starting to become a little quiet confidence from the Penn State fan with James Franklin, or is it still, hey, this dude just doesn't win big games?
I think it's all over the map, right? It's one of those things where at least this year, my take back hasn't been that they lost that Ohio State game because of some egregious mismanagement of the clock, or they just looked scared. Like they didn't look like they wanted to win the football game in terms of how they were calling it, either offensively or defensively. I think it just came down to situational football. Like they were 0 for 4 in 4 situations that they couldn't be 0 for 4 against. They showed some great fight against Oregon. So the losses feel a little bit different this year. I think that's a positive sign, trending upward for Coach. But he's got a great opportunity to make a lot of those voices and talking heads go away if he's able to continue this run here in the playoff, because they'll very quickly forget a lot of all that stuff if they can make it to the college football playoff semifinal and get a few more wins here under their belt. So I think it's up in the air, but it's just one of those things. I think Colton Ecke's been a great aid, at least on that side of the ball. I think he's got a lot of confidence in him, which I think has been different from the past few years as it pertains to the offensive coordinators.
Christian Hackenberg here with us. All right, get into Texas, Arizona State. Arizona State's going to play with no fear. It's just the way that a Kenny Dillingham team has played all year. Scadaboo's really good. Levitt doesn't get enough credit. But I'm looking at Texas. I think there's a big moment for Quinn Ewers because, hey, I get it. They've only have 2 losses on the year. They're 12-2. They won the Big 12 last year. First year in the SEC. They're in the SEC championship game. But there's always that feeling with Quinn Ewers, just get us to Arch Manning, right, if you're a Longhorn fan. But this guy's won a lot of games at Texas. What kind of performance do you expect from Quinn Ewers coming up on New Year's Day up against Arizona State?
I think he needs a big one. I've been a big Quinn Ewers fan. He gave me a lot of reasons to be excited after last year, being able to go and beat Bama. And he's won some big games for him, and he's played really well. The last few weeks, though, I've just seen maybe it is that hey, we just want to get to Arch, like get it pushing, see what happens, get him up out of here. Maybe that's getting to him a little bit, but I've just seen him do some things that are just uncharacteristic of a guy who's played that much football. The one interception he threw against Georgia, I mean, he tried to throw like a stop route into 2-man. It's like, dude, like that's you can't make that mistake. But there's just been some things like that in his game that has shown up in the past few weeks that have scared me. So I think he really needs to have a big one, completely capable of it. I think he's a really talented passer. So I hope he gets the chance to have a heavier workload this week and at least try to silence some of those qualms, because I do like this Texas team. If he's playing good football and that defense plays to their capabilities, it's a team that I think can win it all.
You look at the next level. Right now, it's pretty clear in some order, Shedeur or Cam Ward are going to go 1-2 in terms of quarterbacks off the board. The third quarterback is a little tricky, right? Quinn Ewers at times has been mentioned this year. Dylan Gabriel, if he goes and beats Ohio State twice in a season, I'm sure that name will start to rise up a lot from a second-round pick to a first-round pick. When you look at the future of Quinn Ewers and also Dylan Gabriel in the NFL, just where do you kind of evaluate both of them in terms of how you prognosticate them at the next level?
Yeah, I think Dylan has a lot of the intangible stuff you really like. He's played at 3 different schools, whatever it is now, and he's won at every single one of them. He doesn't really do anything that like wows you, right? But he's an efficient, accurate passer, can extend plays with his legs. I think both of those guys are guys where if they get in the right system with the right guys and it's the right fit, they're both guys who can succeed. What type of succeed that is, like I don't think it's going to be an all-pro type of guy, but they're both going to be guys who can play for a while and find a role in the NFL in some capacity. But I don't necessarily think they're guys that from a talent standpoint are going to be able to transcend a bunch of things not necessarily going their way, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. Christian Hackenberg here with us. Who do you lean right now on New Year's Day at the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all? Ohio State or is it Oregon right now in your mind?
Listen, the one thing I'm really curious to see is this lag time, right? Like you have some of these teams who've played now and they're in rhythm, and then, the Oregons and everyone who had a bye. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I got a lot of confidence in Dan Lanning having those guys ready to go. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think Dylan Gabriel is a big part of that as well, just a guy who's played a lot of ball at vet. But the way Ohio State played against Tennessee, like I thought that was the most impressive, telling performance of the first round. That's a team that looked like they have it all as well. If they, it's always an if, right? It's always an if you can continue to play that type of ball. But the one thing that I'll at least say just experientially is like I have a ton of respect for Ohio State. Like I think that program has always done a good job of showing up in the biggest moments. It doesn't necessarily always go their way, but they come ready to go. So it's tough to beat a team twice, man. Like Ohio State's got the hot hand, but a lot of it I think is going to tell, like, is there any type of knocking off the dust, knocking off the rust that you typically get when you have a longer break period for bowl games and stuff for Oregon? Because if there is any of that and Ohio State comes out hot, it could be one of those situations where Oregon's actually running from behind, chasing points, and I think Ohio State wants to be in the driver's seat from that side of things.
Yeah, and there's many ways that we talk about, right, in all those three other matchups, you're like, can you win the big game? You know, I think there's a big question. Marcus Freeman's going nowhere. He just signed that new extension. But Notre Dame, even before he got there, they've been kind of stuck in my lifetime of being a really good program, but when they get in these big games, they can't get the job done. You know, I compare Georgia to basically the Chiefs right now, where even when people say they're vulnerable, they're still there. I get it. They're now going to a backup quarterback with Carson Beck down, but I think there's an enormous amount of pressure on Marcus Freeman to get the job done coming up on what would be Wednesday evening.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. The thing is that's a really good football team. I love their defense. They can run the heck out of the football. They're physical on both sides of the lines of scrimmage. I think Riley Leonard's a really, really good athlete. I think he's a really good athlete. I just don't know if he's a guy who's going to win the football game with his arm consistently yet. And I think that's kind of I think that's been the differentiator for Marcus Freeman up there at that position, is having a guy consistently that you can put the ball in his hand and say, hey, go win it. And every other one of these programs we've talked about has had at least one or two of those guys in recent memory. And I think that's just been the differentiator with Notre Dame.
Hey, one more, just following back to Ohio State. Will Howard, where are you at with him right now when you evaluate his game?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I don't know, man. He's fun. I got to watch him play live against Penn State up there, and it's just it's weird, man. He's got a lot of talent around him. I don't think that he's necessarily gotten the maximum production out of everything that's been around him. I don't know, man. I just think he's a guy. Like, I think he's good. I think he's got some things that he does well. Every guy does that's playing at that level. But I just don't know if it's like anything that's, hey, sell the ship, sell the boat. We really got to get this guy in there. Like, I still live on the fence of like, I don't know if it was an upgrade from Kyle McCord personally. Wow. Like, I think Kyle McCord throws the football really, really well. I think if you put Kyle McCord in good situations and played to his strengths more consistently, like, I think Kyle would have done and thrived really well with what's been around him. Will brings a little bit more from just a twitch, like a pure athlete standpoint. But I mean, just throwing the football, I don't know if it was an upgrade.
Yeah, I thought McCord was more steady, but with Howard, like the Penn State game, man, that dude's a great leader. He'll run through a wall, do whatever. And then there's just moments like the Michigan game where the ceiling and to the floor, I don't know which way it's going to go. He's all over the place. And obviously, when he's hitting the ceiling, it's like, wow, but then there's a big drop off and it can happen real quickly with him.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things that's, I think when you're talking about, hey, I want to go and take this next step in your career, and fortunately these college kids they're not in a position where they have to go chase dollars anymore, or they have to go get out of a bad situation. They can just transfer. Like, I think for him, he still has some brushing up to do on that consistency in terms of, you said it great. I was at a loss of words. I appreciate you there. But like raising that floor for him, because that's another conundrum and head scratcher. Like, I think he does some things really well, but it's just then he does some things and you're like, where did that come from and why is that happening right now? So we'll see. He's all these guys. That's the beauty of this whole thing, man. That's why I love college football. Like, they get an opportunity to change the narrative each week here, as long as they're still alive, and the lights. And you know how that goes. The lights and the momentum. Like, some of these guys, they take advantage of it here. who knows what could happen come April when it comes draft time if these guys do decide to go. Just because, you know, people tend to lean towards what they've seen, the new shiny toy, however they finish. And I've said the same thing even about Drew. Like, if Drew gets hot here and beats two teams that he shouldn't beat, I think he's a guy who goes in the conversation. Like, if Penn State wins the national championship on Drew's back, it's like, would it be smart for him to stay, or would he have a conversation as being that third guy taken if he does what he needs to do? Because I think this draft class is that wide open after the two that you mentioned.
So you think there's a chance, even though he said he was coming back, that if he goes and wins it all, man, maybe that whole situation turns over and he goes to the NFL?
Listen, like I said, I think that's one of those ones where you can't pass up. I don't care how much money he's getting to come back to Penn State. You can't pass up whatever it's going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And I think
hey, vote for Beulah. You want to come back?
Championship, that's what I'm saying. I think it's but that was my example of the unfortunate timing of the whole transfer portal and all this stuff. Is like, you think you got Drew locked in, but again, it's one of those things like someone could just pick up and leave. There's no contract signed. There's no locking him into these things. Like, again, he could go out and throw for 300-400 yards in the semifinal in the national championship game, and I think the media would probably eat that up. And that's where it starts pinballing into, well, you might as well ride this momentum to a top 10 draft pick, because you're not going to make that money in college, and you're losing 40%, probably 40 to 60% of your offensive production in Tyler Warren and probably one of your backs, you know? So it's just one of those really interesting conversations that I don't think anyone's talking about, because it may be so far out there. And I don't even think Drew might have thought about it, but, you know, I think it would be dumb not to think about that if that were to happen.
I haven't thought about that, but it's an excellent conversation piece. Christian Hackenberg, the former Penn State quarterback, we appreciate it. Thanks for doing this again.
Yeah, brother. Appreciate you, man.
There he is, Christian Hackenberg. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take some of your calls on the other side. I see some people are holding patiently at 855-212-4227. We will also, when we return, get into this whole Bears, Pete Carroll thing, and also what happens with the future of Ben Johnson. Back in a few minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, so this report yesterday, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, comes from Adam Schefter. Former Seahawks Super Bowl winning coach Pete Carroll has expressed interest in the Bears head coaching job and would like to return to the sideline next season. League sources tell ESPN Carroll is one of 4 head coaches to have led teams to both a national championship and a Super Bowl. The others are Barry Switzer, Jimmy Johnson, and Jim Harbaugh. So when we get into this, as Hot Take Hickey is with us today, I don't think Pete Carroll would be a bad hire for the Bears. And it's amazing to me how there are fans of bad franchises whenever it came to the name of a Bill Belichick or to Pete Carroll that would object to it and would say, nope, you can't do it, can't happen, and you would want somebody else. I'm not saying you can't want somebody else, but to totally dismiss it, I think is crazy. Now, when I look at the sectors of how the Bears could hire, if you're going for an unproven head coach, someone that's never done it before, I think there could only be one name for the Bears job. And it's Ben Johnson or bust if that's what you're looking for. No disrespect to Kellen Moore, no disrespect to Joe Brady, Bobby Slowick, like whatever name people want to throw out there. If you have not been a head coach yet in the NFL, I think the only name the Bears should consider is Ben Johnson, because he is the creme de la creme name in terms of the coaches that are available, that are coordinators right now and haven't been head coaches. If you are looking for a retread, I think in the year of what's soon to be 2025, even when you factor in Ben Johnson, or even when you look at someone that's like a legend like Pete Carroll, I think if you're looking for the safest hire the Bears can make, it's actually Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback had that team as the number 1 overall seed. We've seen Mike Vrabel have the Tennessee Titans in an AFC championship game. Now, I'm not saying he's Lombardi. I'm not saying he's Belichick. But if you want the best of both worlds, someone to lead your franchise for the foreseeable future, right? Because Pete Carroll, as young as he looks, he's 72, 73 years old. So if you want a guy that's younger, that could maybe you're hiring to be the coach for the next decade, which, let's be real, there's not a lot of coaches that last a decade, and has proven success and is the perfect blend of a players coach, but not a doormat, then you go hire Mike Vrabel. But let's say Mike Vrabel goes elsewhere. Let's say Ben Johnson says, you know what? I'm not feeling the lack of alignment with the Bears, and I'm just going to stay in a really good spot and make a lot of money with the Detroit Lions. If you can't get either of those two guys, then I would absolutely consider Pete Carroll. Because Pete Carroll, say what you want about the end of his time with Russell Wilson, he developed Russell Wilson. He believed in Russell Wilson when no one else believes in Russell Wilson. And then Geno Smith got there, and they made the playoffs. So we have seen Pete Carroll have a long, sustained amount of success when he was the coach of the Seattle Seahawks. We saw what he did, obviously, in college at USC. His first go-arounds, a few go-arounds in the NFL were not good, but that's so many years removed where, let's be real, I know that the Hall of Fame is kind of funky when it comes to coaches. You know, Mike Holmgren is still not in the Hall of Fame, which doesn't really make sense to me as a head coach. There's a few other head coaches as well. But, you know, Tom Coughlin, you know, is still waiting. So it's tricky. But when I look at Pete Carroll, I think that's a guy that's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. So he doesn't need to do this. But there could be a whole lot of other worse options than Pete Carroll. Like, I don't know how you feel on this, Hickey. But if you tell me I get 3 guesses here for the next coach of the Bears in terms of who they have to be. Because if you're telling me what the Bears will do, no one knows. Because the Bears, if there's a way to mess it up, the Bears find a way to mess it up. And that's as polite as I could be with that situation. But if you tell me, Zach, you get 3 names right now that are out there, with Belichick being off the board, it has to be in no order. Really, don't tell me, oh, they'll trade for Kyle Shanahan. Like, that's not happening. The Niners would be the dumbest team in the league if they got rid of Kyle Shanahan. And I've even questioned if Shanahan could win the big game, but after one bad season. But out of the coaches that are available, one of these 3 guys have to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, or now enter Pete Carroll into the situation. What do you make of that, Hickey?
I agree. I would actually, if you had to order it, I'm with you, Ben Johnson, number 1, by a large margin. That has to be the guy. I'd actually put Pete Carroll, too. In part because I think of what you said about development of both Russell Wilson and Geno Smith. First and foremost, for the Bears to have any sort of success going forward, it has to be about the development of Caleb Williams. You got to get this pick right. And I think you actually have a better chance of getting right with Pete in a short term here versus Mike Vrabel, where there are some Belichick vibes from Vrabel in the sense of defense. Forget about the offense. Who cares? And that's, I think, part of the reason why he was kind of forced out. Part of the reason why you always saw a ceiling on the Titans is because you had Ryan Tannehill can never upgrade. Yeah. They leaned on Derrick Henry, nothing else. I think you have a better chance of developing Caleb Williams with Pete Carroll. And again, if he's a bridge for 3 or 4 years,
that's
get
fine.
Some stability right to make that. Because there are also reports out there that Ben Johnson maybe is not as intrigued by the job because of the instability up top. If Pete for 3 years can get this organization stable, maybe make the playoffs once or twice, if he retires, let's say in 2027, and Caleb gets better,
well, put it this way.
Really attractive job.
It's better if, let's say, you have that situation where 3 years from now he's not getting forced out, Pete Carroll.
Right.
And he wants to retire. He's just done. And you have provided stability compared to the alternative of, I don't want to hire a coach who's in his 70s. Oh, we didn't get Vrabel. Oh, Ben Johnson didn't come there. So we're going to roll the dice on another young offensive coordinator. And it may work, but if it doesn't work, then you have ruined Caleb Williams. Like 3 years from now, if we're not talking about the Bears in a positive way, that means they have ruined Caleb Williams. And then, quite frankly, in terms of me taking that franchise seriously, they're dead to me. Because with all the hype around Caleb Williams, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying that he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but where the hype was and what he showed at college, if you can't find a way to get him to at least be successful to some extent in the first few years, then you look at that organization and you will now always say, hey, that's just where quarterbacks go to have their careers just ruined and for their careers to just never get off the ground or their careers to go to die. Because the standard for the Bears, the first time Caleb Williams throws for 4,000 yards, it's going to be the first time that's ever happened in the history of the Bears, for crying out loud. So if you get this wrong, there's no reason until you actually see a franchise quarterback there with a few years of success for me to believe that the Bears are going to be able to do that.
Which is why I don't think it's overstating it to call this one of the biggest, maybe the biggest, like, offseason hire, like, in Bears history. Like, you have to get this right. You can't screw it up. There's a lot of pressure on him to do so. Can I throw one, I would say, maybe realistic trade option by you?
Yes, but real quickly, I'm actually surprised how positively that you've talked about Pete Carroll. Because I remember the end of Russell Wilson when I was working with you as Hot Take Hickey's filling in today for Stu. I remember the end of the Russell Wilson era with the Seahawks, and no one, and I mean no one, attacked Pete Carroll. Old man Pete Carroll. Hickey beats up on the senior citizens, and I don't like it. You verbally abused that man on the air.
Oh, I did. I was not a fan of Pete. And part of the niceties, I will say, is the scarcity of good, offensive coordinators and good options right now. Again, look at the three guys you just listed. Who else are we talking about? Who else is even like you feel remotely has a chance to do well? Not many. Mm-hmm. And so at least Pete, to his credit, well, can he get the most? And does his offensive system maybe truly relevant in 2024? I would disagree, or maybe say no. He knows how to bring stability, and that's something the Bears need desperately.
All right, now to your trade. This is a current coach, correct?
Current coach, I would say realistic in that I think the other team would be open to maybe hearing them out.
I have a name in my mind.
Okay.
But just ask me this. I think I know your brain well enough. Is it an AFC or an NFC coach currently?
It is an AFC coach.
Mike Tomlin.
No.
Okay. I don't think the Steelers would do that, to be clear, but that's where I thought you were going for. Hickey always loves to craft up a really hot take, and Steelers lose yesterday. They've lost 3 in a row. They're not going to a Super Bowl. They may not win a playoff game for another year. Last time they won the playoff game was back in the 2016 regular season. I thought we were going to get the spicy hot take of Mike Tomlin. So this is an AFC coach.
AFC coach.
And he's not in danger of currently getting fired this offseason, right?
No, there was a thought maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago. Is he on the hot seat? Would he get fired?
Is it Zach Taylor?
Not Zach Taylor. You're getting closer.
Kevin
Stefanski, who Brown's incompetent. There were some ridiculous hot seat rumors about Kevin Stefanski as recently. When was that Monday or that Thursday night game against the Steelers? Like a month ago? Mm-hmm. There was talk about it on local radio. Is he on the hot seat? I think he's a good offensive coach. He's developed every quarterback and won with every quarterback except for one, Deshaun Watson. And maybe the Browns be stupid enough to. And they also Browns do need draft capital.
Yeah. I don't think that's a move that gets you jumping for joy. But I do think Stefanski is a good coach. And I do think if you ask Kevin Stefanski next year, would you rather be the coach of the Bears or the Browns? He would say, drive me to O'Hare Airport, okay? Just get me there now and have me be there, because whether I don't think he likes it. And I don't know how much say Andrew Berry has in the situation, but as long as the Haslam family is there in this offseason, which they're not going anywhere, this, Deshaun Watson's going to be back next year. And Deshaun Watson right now you just can't fix him. He's unfixable right now. He's lost.
If you were the Browns and I said here's a first and second round pick, would you make that deal? If you were a Browns fan, would you trade Kevin Stefanski for a first and second round pick?
Yeah, but can I be honest with you? I'm a fan of Kevin Stefanski. I don't think Kevin Stefanski's netting back a first and a second.
Interesting.
Round pick.
Okay.
That's like if you throw me an elite name. Stefanski's a good coach. He's not an elite name. An elite name can go for a first-round pick. Stefanski's not an elite name for a first and then a second. That's why you're not an NFL GM. That's what I learned from this conversation.
Overpaid.
Yeah. 855-212-4227. Let me squeeze in Rob in Connecticut real quickly. I know he's been holding for a while. Rob, appreciate the time. What's going on?
Hey, Zach, what's going on? I wanted to ask you, have you ever listened to the 5-minute break music?
Yes, every day. You're in a 5-minute break. Yeah.
Yeah, you know that I have a whole dance routine to every song that comes on every 30 seconds now.
Do you really? You do like a little Super Bowl shuffle when you get to 30 seconds?
I sit here and move to it, like I'm at some kind of techno rave,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is fun.
For people that have no clue what we're talking about, in the breaks, that if you're on hold or if you're listening on YouTube, it says you're in a 5-minute break. And then it sounds as if we're at an EDM rave. Yes, you're not wrong on that.
Oh, Rob. Absolutely. It's like, I don't use drugs today, but man, I was that close to dropping ecstasy. And I was like, well, that'll make it even more interesting. But no, I like it. Hey, we were talking about you going to Temple and Deion Dawkins the other day.
Yeah.
Question to you is, did you grow up in Pennsylvania?
No, I didn't. I'm from Long Island in New York. I lived in Philadelphia for 7 years, though.
Oh, okay, because I used to live in Doylestown.
Okay.
And I used to play, I actually played freshman football with Mike Pettin. He was the head coach of the Browns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his father was very well Bucks West High School and Central Bucks East High School were rivals. A matter of fact, Scott Stankiewicz came out of Central Bucks East and played for the Tar Heels. But Mike Pettin and I played football together back at Lenape High School.
That's cool.
Junior high school. So, anyways, I heard the first segment of your show you were talking about yesterday, the game, Kansas City. It was just so interesting how all year long, a lot of us, and I fell short of it too, it was like, Kansas City just doesn't look like Kansas City. Mahomes doesn't look like Mahomes, and I don't know how they're squeaking by on these games. But then after what I witnessed yesterday and heard, it was like they're back. I mean, Worthy's where he's supposed to be. Now that Hollywood Brown is doing what he's doing, you got Hopkins, you got Gray, and then you got Kelsey. They're right back where it's like they never left.
Oh, yeah, and they also lock up the number one seed. And Rob, I'm up against this, I got to let you run. You officially lock up the number one seed, and it's how many times through the year were we rooting or were we thinking, the Chiefs don't look that impressive, and you still get the number one seed, and now you're 2 wins away from when it actually matters, because who cares about the last game of the season? You're now 2 wins away from going back to another Super Bowl. And all you have to do is just get hot at the end of the year. And the scary part for the rest of the NFL is that we haven't even seen the Chiefs play their best football. And it seems like they're heating up now, and that's what makes them, they're already incredibly scary, but it makes them even scarier. All right, we'll do a little Paper Shredder Thursday. We return. It's the Zach Gelb Show. Update time first. Here is Erica Herskowitz.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, this report brought to you by PXG for high-quality, high-performance golf clubs, apparel that delivers style and comfort, premium golf balls, award-winning gloves, and more. Make it a PXG holiday for the golfer in your life. Find the PXG store near you at pxg.com. First, we take it to the NBA, where the Mavs could be without Luka Doncic for an extended period of time, as he's having an MRI today on his strained left calf. Doncic sustained that injury in the first half of last night's loss to the Timberwolves. Meanwhile, responding to rumors, Heat team president Pat Riley says they have no intention of trading Jimmy Butler. That statement comes just days after a report surfaced that the six-time All-Star wants to be traded out of Miami ahead of the February 6th deadline. It is Week 17 in the NFL. Thursday Night Football tonight in Chicago. The Seahawks look to stay in the playoff chase as they get ready to take on the struggling Bears at Soldier Field. And they're coming off back-to-back losses. Seattle trails the NFC West, leading Rams by 1 game with 2 games to play. And the latest injury news, Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts didn't practice yesterday, putting his status for Sunday's game against the Cowboys up in the air. I'm Erica Herskowitz.
Hey, sports fans, Andrew Perloff here on the Infinity Sports Network. Check us out 24/7 on SiriusXM Channel 158.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
So I saw a tweet about 20 minutes ago, and I was like, I thought it was fake. And the name of the Twitter account was Jeff Lightsey, and I just didn't even click on his profile. So he's a sports reporter, Western Kentucky University grad, 1906 Victory Formation Media is some of the things that has posted about him. So I just didn't think what he was tweeting was true. Nothing against him. I just saw it, and how many erroneous things do you see on Twitter anyways? And it's like, all right, it's probably some fake account or something like that. It's a real account, though. So give him the credit first. But then I just saw that Pete Thamel tweeted this out during the break, and it was the same thing that he had. Deshaun Jackson and Delaware State are finalizing an agreement for him to take over the head coaching job per ESPN sources. Deshaun Jackson did an on-campus interview in recent days, and the sides are expected to come together in the near future. So I guess everyone's just trying to now replicate with Mike Vick getting a job as well. The Deion Sanders playbook where you just get a popular, and right, we know Deion's as popular as they come, former NFL player, and you get all the NIL money, and it makes it a real happening school. The only problem with that is Deion was coaching before Colorado. Deion Sanders did an excellent job at Jackson State. So just taking Michael Vick, right, from Fox and making him the head coach in college. I'm talking about guys that have coached college before, and now Deshaun Jackson as well. For a school like Delaware State, what do you have to lose is what I would say. But just to think because you get a big former athlete in there that it's going to work doesn't always mean that it will work. But it is intriguing, and it makes people talk about Delaware State, where, let's be real, no one would have been talking about Delaware State if they didn't hire someone of fame to be their next head football coach, like someone of the stardom of Deshaun Jackson. So I was not expecting to be talking about that today. When I saw that report 20 minutes ago, I thought it was just some fake Twitter account, and then you get a guy like Pete Thamel who has confirmed it. So, my oh my, that's something. All righty, let's get to the paper shredder here on a Paper Shredder Thursday. So, we went from eliminating teams that would make the playoffs to now eliminating teams that could win the Super Bowl. Here are our remaining teams. The Bills, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Rams, and the Seahawks. So, we will end this next week, and what we will do is we're going to get down to 3 AFC teams and 3 NFC teams who could win the Super Bowl. We start things off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. 18 days ago, they had 3 losses on the season. Now they have 6 going up against the Eagles, the Ravens, and yesterday with the Kansas City Chiefs. Some things just don't change with the Steelers. And this is a franchise that has won 6 Lombardi trophies, and they are very far away from getting a 7th. So we will shred the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next up, I love me some Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is really fun to watch. Here's the problem, though. I still think Tampa Bay is going to find a way to win the division, but when you lose to the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, even though they had a gritty effort, not that I really thought you were going to win a Super Bowl, but I was like, maybe they could be a surprising team. Yeah, I can't sit here and say that you still have a chance to win a Super Bowl. So we shred the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Next up. That's a long shred, by the way. Hickey's not messing around. Da-na-da-na-na-na. Go, Pack, go! You will live to see another week. The Denver Broncos. I like what Sean Payton has done this year. Pat Surtain's one of my favorite players in the league. Bo Nix is better than what I could have thought. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. But Super Bowl? No. There's no chance for the Denver Broncos. They go into the paper shredder. Even though the Chargers beat the Broncos, the Chargers are setting up for a nice foundation. They have restored respectability to that franchise because they hired Jim Harbaugh. I love me some Jim Harbaugh. They need more skill position players. When Ladd McConkey right now is your best skill position player, nothing wrong with Ladd, he's really good, but that's a problem. He can't be your best, your preeminent skill position player. So I look at the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a good foundational year, right? They're going to have a playoff game, but anything more than that, just gravy. There's no way they're winning 3 playoff games, even with the great Jim Harbaugh this year, and going to a Super Bowl. So we put them in the shredder. I have a Super Bowl future on the LA Rams. I will let this sheet live to see another day when I look at the LA Rams with Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. If the Rams get in, I think they're dangerous. The Seattle Seahawks. Fun team, but Geno Smith, even though he has restored his career the last few years, he's their kryptonite for them winning big games. And I don't even know if he can win one playoff game, let alone 3. So we shred the Seattle Seahawks. Next up, Sammy Slingin' Darnold with the Minnesota Vikings. Brian Flores should get a head coaching job this year. I would love to see B-Flow get another head coaching job. And when I look at Minnesota, they are a team that could be the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. So even though you may want to doubt them, I'm not shredding them yet. I need to see more before I could put them in the paper shredder. They're still alive to be a top 3 team in the NFC to get to a Super Bowl. And I believe that is it for this week. So still remaining are the Bills, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Lions, the Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the LA Rams. So we're down to 3 in the AFC. Bills, Ravens, Chiefs. That's what we're down to. And that's the only 3 teams I could see get into the Super Bowl in the AFC. In the NFC, we got some more teams to shred because we got 5 remaining. Eagles, Lions, Packers, Vikings, and the LA Rams. So we are down to 3 in the AFC. We got to get down to 3 in the NFC. We'll do that next week. Real quickly, just to get back to the Ben Johnson conversation. Hickey, I don't know how sold I am that Ben Johnson's going to take a job. Because we all thought that he was going to take a job last year. He passed up the Commanders with the 2nd overall pick. I think if he's going to take a job this cycle, it's the Bears. But if he didn't want to go to the Commanders last year, I don't know if it's a lock that he's going to want to go to the Bears. And I think that's a dude that has set the bar so high that everything has to go his way that I don't believe that he's afraid to wait another year or 2 if he has to. It's annoying. It's a little insufferable. Just take a job already. But it wouldn't put it past me if he's back with the Lions next year.
With how great of a situation he has, with how quickly coaches get fired, wait. I mean, what other Jaguars, Saints, Jets? Oh, stink.
If you're going to take a job, you take the Bears, I think.
I'm with you. And if you don't like the Bears, stay with Detroit.
All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. First 2 hours of the show in the books. When we come on back, I think I know who the 4 best quarterbacks in football are this year. Who's the 5th? And when we get to the MVP conversation, are you team Josh Allen or are you team Lamar Jackson? 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will talk about who are the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now in just a second. Also, who should win the MVP? Is it Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? 855-212-4227. But Hot Take Hickey is filling in today for Stu Kovacs. And earlier, Hickey, you had your pal on, Christian Hackenberg. And at the end of that conversation, Christian Hackenberg just threw out there, hey, if Penn State goes on to get to a championship or get to a national championship and, you know, they win it, or even if he goes on this crazy run and they get there, maybe lose in the national championship game, even though someone like Drew Aller's already said he's coming back, he could maybe change that decision. And Hackenberg went as far to say you'd be dumb enough to at least not even consider it. So let me just throw this out there, Hickey. Because if I just tell you, hey, if Penn State wins a national championship and Drew Aller goes to the NFL, you know, would you sign up for that? I know you would obviously say yes. And I'm not all that well-versed on who's the quarterback next year for Penn State if it's not Drew Aller, because Bo Perbula, he signed with Missouri this weekend for, I saw, $1.5 million, which who knows how much of that is up front and how much of that is guaranteed. A lot of this stuff gets misreported by the agents to all the insiders and all that. But does Penn State, do they have someone there waiting? If, let's just say, that did happen, and I'll give you the question in just a second, a different question off this. But do you know of someone that's there that if Drew Aller is not able to come back next year because Penn State somehow wins a national championship, he's like, I got to go to the pros and capitalize off this. Do they have a guy right now with Perbula no longer there?
No. There's no one ready. So, I mean...
You have to hit the second wave of the transfer portal.
Which, who the hell knows what's going to be available at that point in April. Penn State would be in trouble.
They would be in trouble, but if you win a national championship, I think you'd be okay with that.
Oh, absolutely. I will gladly, like you said, sign up for that right now.
Now, I do think you could get someone that committed to another school or something like that. Or actually, you get someone to leave their current school to go to Penn State. I would imagine you could get someone that is okay.
Probably, but again, when you miss spring ball, you're playing catch up.
Yeah, but
you lose out on the job, okay, but do you want the guy that loses out on a job? I don't know.
Now, I think you could do this. I'm not 100% sure. Let me just throw Malik Murphy out there, for example. Malik Murphy just went into the portal. He ended up signing, I think it was Washington State or Oregon. It was Oregon State where he signed. And there were some reports that he wasn't going to sign there, and then he ended up signing. Could you go into the portal, sign with the school, and then before even playing a snap there, in the second portal wave, go back into the portal and let's say go to a place like Penn State?
I'm 99% sure you can.
Right, because there's no unlimited transfers now.
Right, there's no rule, there's no penalty. There's it's the Wild West, so there's nothing stopping, I guess, in theory, Bo Perbula, who was Penn State's quarterback, went to Missouri, from coming back.
To go back, yeah.
There's nothing. I don't think he would do that. You'd really burn a bridge there, but there's technically nothing in the rules that says no.
No offense. To go play at a school like Missouri, I would burn that bridge to go back to Penn State, even though Missouri's in the SEC, your favorite conference in America, to go back to Penn State where you have familiarity and you're still playing in a major conference. It's not as if
a diehard Penn State fan living out his dream, but
yeah.
It'd be tough. It'd be weird, to say the least.
All right, here's the question. Would you sign up for Penn State's in the national championship game, but they don't win it? But Drew Aller plays well enough, they lose on a field goal at the end to, let's say, Oregon. They lose on a field goal at the end, but at least you get there. But Drew Aller has done enough to solidify himself as the third best quarterback in this NFL draft class, and he's still going to go. He's going to go to the pros. And he's going to go back on his word. He's going to say, yep, I know I said I was coming back next year, but things change. Would you sign up for a run to the national championship right now, even though that means you lose Drew Aller for next year?
No.
You wouldn't?
I would rather, if you told me the two options are go to the national title game, lose Drew Aller, or lose to Boise State, and he comes back, I'll lose to Boise State.
Okay. Let me take it a step further. I just tell you he gets to the national championship game.
Okay.
I'm not telling you the outcome.
Okay.
You have to play a little bit of, I give you one option, you could take the option, or you could see what's behind door B. So I just tell you, option A is Drew Aller is in the national championship game for Penn State, but you lose him. That's option A. And if I said, hey, behind option B, you don't know what's there, but there's a 50-50 chance that you win the national championship, would you have then taken it if I worded it to you that way?
Yes. You tell me you're 60 minutes away from winning a national title. The result is not, whatever. Play the field, play the game, and see what happens. I'll take it.
But then if I told you behind door B after you already took door A and it was a binding agreement, none of this transfer portal nonsense, that behind door B, Drew Aller loses to Oregon 45-42 in the national championship game where he throws 4 touchdowns and you still lose into the NFL, you would be upset is what you're saying.
Yes, I would be. Because then it's a double whammy. You lose the national title. You lose most hope for next year as well. I'd rather either win the national title or try to preserve as many bullets for next year as possible.
Would you agree with this statement, by the way, as we now transition the conversation to the NFL? The 4 best quarterbacks in no order in the NFL: Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't even think it's up for debate. Who's the 5th best quarterback in the NFL? I think that is such a tricky question to answer. Now, I wrote down 3 names just under consideration. You tell me if we should add any other names under consideration. You would agree Jared Goff with what he's been able to do, kind of saving his career with the Detroit Lions. And right now he has the 2nd most passing yards in the NFL and the 4th most touchdowns, and he's top 10 in QBR. You would agree Jared Goff is under consideration?
Yes.
Would you also agree that Jaden Daniels, in year 1 in the NFL, where he's clearly going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels, to me, is what C.J. Stroud was to the Texans last year, this year with the Commanders. And last year we were having legitimate conversations. If C.J. Stroud is already a top 5 quarterback in the league, would you say Jaden Daniels is already under consideration for a top 5 quarterback in the league?
Absolutely, I would.
Okay. And if I threw one more name out there for you, I'm going to also still throw Matthew Stafford into the fold. Would you still consider Matthew Stafford, who right now has the 9th most passing yards in the NFL, is still top 10 in QBR, would you consider him a top 5 quarterback in the NFL?
I would. I think he's in the conversation.
Anyone else you want to add into that list?
I think Baker Mayfield deserves to be in that list.
Top 5?
His last outing did not go great against the Cowboys. Very disappointing.
But it wasn't his fault. He played well.
Played well.
See if he's got to catch the football.
Yes, you're not wrong. And the one interception down by the goal line was just an incredible defensive play. But like you look at it, right, Mike Evans has been in and out of the lineup this year. Chris Godwin's missed now what's going to be a majority of the year. He has played. He's elevated talent. He's found different receivers to step up. They got off to a slow start, gotten off the mat, now playing well in large part because the defense, as you're coached by a defensive coach, is not very good, especially in the secondary. So you've gotten into more higher scoring games. I think Baker Mayfield deserves consideration.
All right, just yes or no me in terms of consideration for top 5 quarterbacks in the league. For that 5th spot, if we've all said Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson in some order of 1 through 4. Do you consider Tua Tagovailoa a top 5 QB in the NFL? Surprising because you were part of the Tuanon back in the day. I don't think he should be top 5, but you were a big supporter of Tua Tagovailoa. C.J. Stroud.
No, not this year.
Yeah, definitely not this year. I just have to ask, and don't take this seriously, just to get under Hickey's skin. Anthony Richardson.
Yes, of course. Put him in number 1. No quarterback I'm taking above him.
All right, all kidding aside, Justin Herbert.
Solid. No, not top 5.
Jalen Hurts.
No.
Dak Prescott.
No.
Okay. Sam Darnold. Oh, come on. Don't say
I think he deserves, I think he's on the fringe of the conversation, but he's top 5, top 10 in every statistical category. He's not turning the ball over. Aaron Jones has a fumbling problem. It's not like they're exactly ripping it up on the ground. I think him and Baker, I think, actually deserve a lot more consideration than maybe most people would think.
Okay. I will respond to that in just a second, but let me see if there's any other names that I want to consider. That's probably it. No one in the NFC South. You already said Baker. And in the NFC West, we already covered Matthew Stafford.
Would you put in Mr. Toyotathon Jordan Love?
Oh, that's a good name. No, I think he's under consideration for top 10. I was really impressed with him in the second half of the season. I got to see him win a big game. Like that to me with Jordan Love, there has been some moments just this year. I'm talking about this year because obviously going on the road last year and taking care of business up against the Cowboys was a really good moment for him. But you look at their victories this year. The Seattle game was a good win, but I wouldn't say Seattle's like a huge, crazy opponent. You know, the Niners had a bad year. They beat the Dolphins. They beat the Bears. They beat the Jaguars. They beat the Texans. You know, the Rams early in the season when they were struggling. But you look at their losses this year, Eagles, Vikings, Lions. And they lost the Lions twice. Now, you play Minnesota coming up on Sunday. That's a big moment for Jordan Love. So I think Love is top 10 in that conversation. I would not say he's ready to take that next step to top 5. So let me just ask you this then before we go through all the back and forth, the guys that you threw under consideration. I say to you right now, the 5 best quarterbacks in football in no order are Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar. We agree on that. Who's the 5th? Who would your pick be? Because you threw out about like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 or 7 names. Who would be the guy right now?
I think when you take into consideration the talent, in some cases lack thereof around him, I would probably say right now Jaden Daniels.
Okay. I think that's a fair argument. I'm still going to go with Jared Goff, and I would have never thought before the year I would say Jared Goff's a top 5 quarterback in the league. But when you look at still all those injuries that they have suffered this year, Montgomery now going down. I know a lot of those injuries have happened on the defensive side of the ball. But this guy, you could call him a system quarterback, right? Like the Lions have a great system. But he has 33 touchdowns and 4,095 yards. He's second in the league in passing, fourth in the league in passing touchdowns. To me, that's why I'm going to put him in there and give him the slight edge. But Daniels, that was the decision for me. Before the year, I would have said it's Stafford. My decision was between Goff and Jaden Daniels. And Daniels had a remarkable season. Don't get me wrong, right? The Commanders are going to be in the playoffs. But Jared Goff, I think, legitimately can go win a Super Bowl this year. We're like another name that you threw out there, Sam Darnold. You could talk similarly with Sam Darnold and Jared Goff, how they're a product of the system. Jared's better than Sam right now. I just still have not got there yet where I envision Sam Darnold hoisting up a Lombardi trophy. I could actually envision, Hickey, Jared Goff hoisting up a Lombardi trophy.
I am a Darnold. I think the Vikings are alive this year in the NFC. I think we could be seeing it.
Now, here's the crazy part. You think they should bring him back, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think they will bring him back, though? Because you always struggle with that when I worked with you. You could say they should bring him back, right? That's a fair argument. But will they bring him back?
I think so because now, number one, quarterback contracts are easier than ever to get out from under, no matter how. I mean, look at the Broncos, moving on from Russ. If the Browns want to move off him, it's not like we have seen quarterback or teams move off of highly paid quarterbacks, incur big dead cap hits, and still be competitive. So I think if you pay him, the downside is, okay, he reverts back to himself. You cut him, and then you have J.J. McCarthy playing. I don't think it's the worst thing. And we've seen quarterbacks that are drafted high and sit 2-3 years. It still can help their development. I think you bring him back, you pay him, and then kind of see what happens from there.
I don't think he's coming back. I think that this is set up by design where the Vikings, with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, with Kevin O'Connell, KOC, as all the kids call him, I think they believe that they could cut corners in terms of paying the quarterback right now, and they could build a talented enough roster where you could get the production of what we've seen this year of Sam Darnold, who's been garbage everywhere else in the NFL. You get him in the right system, and I think they could replicate that or come close to replicating that in their mind with J.J. McCarthy. So here was Ben Lieber the other day when he joined us on Monday, right here on the Zach Gelb Show, and he feels like this will be one and done for Sam Darnold with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to say that, but this team has talked about a plan for a long time. You know, they've always got the big picture in mind, and the big picture in mind is not overpaying or paying a lot of money at the quarterback position. So I think they really, really wanted to shed that Kirk Cousins contract. Now, Sam's not going to get probably anywhere close to that, but he's still going to get north of $35 million a year, probably into the $40 million a year. If you can go younger at that position and feel like you can still get that high level of play, I mean, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer.
I think it also comes down to, Hickey, how much he's going to get. Because to your point, if he get the Baker Mayfield contract, which is 3 for $100, which I think he'll get a little bit more than that, then okay, you could keep him for another year. And then if he plays well and then you think McCarthy's ready, you get the best of both worlds where you get something back for him, and then it's 2 years of sustained success with Sam, and then boom, you ship him off somebody else and you go to J.J. McCarthy with another year of J.J. waiting, right? Like that could be a possibility. Maybe even upwards to 2, and then you get into the final year of the contract. But with Darnold keep on playing at a big level, that price is only going up and up and up, and he keeps on hearing cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I just ultimately think that the Vikings, from what their alternative is, in terms of JJ's on a rookie contract, they're going to get priced out in terms of what they want to spend for Sam Darnold, and they obviously believe in J.J. McCarthy enough to take him with the 10th overall pick in the draft.
I think the tough part, though, is just you have a bird in the hand, right? You have a quarterback. You can, if you win these next 2 games, they're tough games. You win the next 2 games, you're the number 1 seed in the NFC. The conference goes through Minneapolis. Do you want to bypass that in the quarterback to bring in what is a question mark in J.J. McCarthy? Most rookie quarterbacks fail and not succeed. He missed all this year, so he hasn't even getting the practice reps. They're limited anyway, but still, you're not getting the practice reps that you would get as a backup anyway. To throw him in with these expectations and a team that's ready to win now, but you're trying to develop a rookie quarterback. That's a lot to ask, too, if you're the Vikings here if you're moving off of Sam Darnold, right? You're telling the team, the fans, we think this guy could be even better. And to have that, the expectation will be better immediately, and that's going to be a big question mark.
All right, I'm going to give you what's behind door A. I'm not going to tell you what's behind door B. Behind door A for the Minnesota Vikings is the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. If they get the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, do you bring him back? Like, do you take what's behind door A? Do you want to see what behind door B is before making that decision?
I thought they should bring him back 6 weeks ago. So
okay.
Absolutely. You win these next 2 games, you're the number 1 seed, bring him back.
Now, I tell you what's behind door B.
Let's hear it.
They lose in the first round of the playoffs by 14 points. So the divisional round, they get the bye. Who could potentially be coming? The Commanders come in there. Let's just say the Commanders have an upset victory in the first round, or if it seemed like the Green Bay Packers may be getting there, who knows? And they just get boat raced. They lose the game by 14 to 17 points. You think how they lose could maybe determine if they're going to end up bringing him back?
Potentially. I mean, I don't think you should base his future off of one game. I mean, the Vikings lost, was it 2 years ago in bad fashion against the Giants at home, and they still brought Kirk Cousins back for 2023.
Kirk more established, though.
Absolutely. I'll say this. You should not base your decision if you're the Vikings off of his postseason run. You've seen 17 games. That's to me enough to where if you lose at home, all of a sudden now he's done. I don't think that should be the decision-making aspect.
I believe, by the way, as we then just put a bow on this conversation and just get everything that we teased into this segment here, I do believe that Josh Allen is going to win the MVP. Do you, not who should, but when the award is handed out, do you think it will be Josh Allen?
I do not.
So you think it's going to be Lamar Jackson?
I do.
Do you think it should be Lamar?
Absolutely.
Okay, why?
Better statistically in every category compared to Josh Allen. He's won 2 MVPs. This is by far his best year. Mm-hmm. Career best in almost every aspect. The Ravens right now are rolling. I mean, the MVP is the best player, essentially. I think he's been better than Josh Allen this year.
See, that's my problem, though. I don't really care who wins the award, and I know this is going to be a hostile conversation where if you're saying it's Josh Allen, you're going to make it out like Lamar Jackson sucks. If you're saying it's Lamar Jackson, you're going to make it out as if Josh Allen's the worst in the world, right? Like, that's what it's going to be. These are what always these debates end up being. But it's most valuable. Now, usually this award has become, who do you think is the best quarterback? But to me, when you look at value, I love Lamar. I don't think anyone since Lamar came out of college has supported him more on a national radio show than me. I thought Lamar Jackson should have obviously been a quarterback when coming out of college in the first round when other dope said he should go be a wide receiver. I said that when he was available a few years ago, I would give him a fully guaranteed contract if I was a team, if that's what it took to get him out of Baltimore and give the 2 first-round picks. Had no problem with that whatsoever. But the term is most valuable. And I look at the Ravens, and having Derrick Henry there, when it comes to value, hurts Lamar when in my opinion, even though what you just said about the stats, Lamar statistically is having a better season, I think it hurts the value because who's the second best offensive player for the Buffalo Bills? You take the quarterback, Josh Allen, out of it. Who is it? It's James Cook. And James Cook is nowhere close, even though he's a really good running back and underappreciated. He has 928 rushing yards. He's 15th in the league in rushing yards. Now, you look at rushing touchdowns, he is tied for first. But that's a big part he set up because of the fact of Josh Allen. And James Cook is a good young running back. But you look at Derrick Henry, he's also tied for first in rushing touchdowns, but he has 1,783 rushing yards. So I look at that, and I think for me, that's the difference, is I look at the offensive rosters, and I see James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, Amari Cooper, and, Keon Coleman. And I look at the Ravens. Hey, the Ravens, they got Zay Flowers. He's really damn good. They got Derrick Henry. He's elite. You still have Mark Andrews, even though he hasn't always been consistent this year. But when Andrews doesn't play well, doesn't play well, then Andrews does. So I just look at that, Hickey, and it's weird because you walked into the season outside of Henry, and you're like, I don't know how many of the weapons I could trust with the Ravens. But for the Bills, man, they don't got a lot of weapons that you could trust that you look at any of those guys saying that they're elite outside of Josh Allen. So that's That's the difference for me in terms of determining the value.
This has been, though, by track record, right? An award where people haven't, I guess, taken that into account or cared that much. I mean, Lamar minus, again, he's a big factor, but minus Derrick Henry last year, the same team, same offense, and won pretty easily MVP. So it's not like the MVP voters are penalizing, let's say, quarterbacks or players that have help around them as much. So I think that factored in with the numbers and how they're playing right now. I would give it to Lamar. It's going to be fun, though. It'll be a fun race the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think what Lamar is to the Ravens this year last year is what Josh Allen is to the Bills this year. And Lamar won the MVP last year, so that's why I would give it to Josh this year. But I don't think you could go wrong here. I personally just would go Josh. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come on back. We will take a look at tonight's Thursday night football game between the Bears and the Seahawks next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, this portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. Tonight, Week 17 started yesterday, so it is already upon us. And even though yesterday felt like a Sunday, if I'm going to be honest, I don't know why. I thought yesterday was Sunday, but I know that it was Wednesday, and tonight you do have Thursday night football. You have the Seattle Seahawks at the Chicago Bears. The Seattle Seahawks need to win this game after losing their last two. They are still alive to go win that division. I still think that the Rams are going to win that division, but Seattle can't afford to lose another game with them being at 8-7 and the Rams being at 9-6 and the Rams winning 4 games in a row. I think Seattle gets the job done tonight. If you had to bet in this game, I'm going to put together a little parlay, just 2 picks. Kenneth Walker is out. He's now on IR. So Zach Charbonnet, I'll take him anytime touchdown. And then I will lay the 4.5 points with the Seattle Seahawks. So that's at plus 154 on a same game kind of minor parlay, just picking 2 with the Seahawks laying the 4.5 and then Zach Charbonnet getting into the end zone as an anytime touchdown scorer. So the future of the Seahawks, I think, is fascinating. Because I know most people tonight, the conversation on Amazon Prime Video, is going to be the future of the Bears. You know, are they going to get Ben Johnson? Now, on the cusp of the Pete Carroll report, people are going to be like, oh, Pete Carroll, would you want him with the Chicago Bears? And you'll get the name of Mike Vrabel. Like, I would anticipate tonight for Prime Video that if I'm doing the pregame show, I think the majority of the pregame show is talked about speculating the future for the Chicago Bears, especially because you're in Chicago, you're going to have Bears fans there, and you want to try to set this franchise up to get the most out of Caleb Williams. So if you are Carissa Thompson, if you are Andrew Whitworth, Tony Gonzalez, Richard Sherman, Ryan Fitzpatrick, that's what I anticipate you talking about for the majority of the pregame report. But I do think at some point, especially depending on how this game goes, and I think it plays more into the fact that they lose, but I don't really believe that the Seahawks are going to lose tonight. I think there's a conversation to be had about the future of the Seattle Seahawks. Because when you look at the Seattle Seahawks, Geno Smith has 1 year left in the contract. You have a new head football coach in Mike McDonald who's done a good job this year. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba. Maybe you look to move Tyler Lockett this offseason. I would try to get a deal done with DK Metcalf. You got 2 good young running backs, solid running backs in Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. You know, the defense, you got some good young up-and-coming players on that defense. But do you feel like if you're Seattle, you're anywhere close to winning a Super Bowl? No. You're a playoff team. You could be a playoff team. You're not even a lock to make the playoffs this year, but you could be a playoff team. So I think you got to find that next quarterback. And Geno Smith ended up being the perfect bridge the gap kind of guy from Russ, and longer than what you thought the gap was ever going to be, because when Geno Smith got there, heck, it was Drew Lock who was perceived to be the guy. No one knew what Geno Smith was going to be able to. Oh, no, well, Drew Lock got traded in the Russell Wilson trade anyway. But at the time, they thought that Drew Lock was going to be their guy. And then eventually, Geno Smith, when they brought him there, I don't really think anyone thought that he was going to be there this long. What is it? Is this now his 3rd year? Geno Smith, I'm pretty sure. It's his 3rd year with the Seattle Seahawks. So if you thought there was going to be a world where he was going to be on his fourth year, I don't think anyone ever thought that, even with the first year where he's like, oh, everyone wrote me off, I didn't write back. That great moment they ended up getting into the postseason. They gave a good first half, and then he had a fumble, and they ended up losing to the San Francisco 49ers. That game got lopsided towards the end. So I think it's one of those moments where if Geno's their quarterback next year, that's fine. Geno's solid. He's had too many interceptions this year, but he's closing in on 4,000 passing yards once again. He's fourth in the league right now in passing yards with 3,937, and he has 17 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. But Geno Smith's just a guy. He's not the guy. And I look at the potential names for the Seahawks, and I think in the last year and a half, I have floated around every possible name for the Seattle Seahawks because I really do believe the Seahawks are a good destination. So we were talking about Sam Darnold earlier, right? What are the Vikings going to do? And I personally believe that the Vikings, whether you like it or not, they're going to make J.J. McCarthy the guy next year, and Sam Darnold's going to go somewhere else. And I haven't heard anyone besides myself. I feel like I'm just sometimes talking. I know people are listening, but sometimes, right, you say something over and over again. It's like, okay, with how many stories that we have talked about here that then other shows take and other shows use, or we make news and then it's like the lead story on this network or that network, how no one else has ran with Sam Darnold potentially being the guy for the Seattle Seahawks, and that's where he's going. I'm a little bit surprised by that. Because what's the one knock on Sam Darnold? Oh, it's such a great system with the Minnesota Vikings. And maybe you could have questions about the new offensive coordinator. But when I look at the talent around him, Sam needs talent around him. Like if Sam Darnold right now is the quarterback of the Raiders and you only have Brock Bowers to throw the ball to, who's really damn good. Do I think Sam Darnold's being this hot commodity in this offseason? No. But if Sam Darnold gets a Justin Jefferson, a Jordan Addison, a TJ Hawkinson, an Aaron Jones, right, then he puts himself in that conversation. And in Seattle, you don't have as many great weapons, but you have good enough weapons. Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker. So there's enough there where I think Sam could have some success in Seattle if you give him that Baker Mayfield type of deal if the Minnesota Vikings don't want him back. We had Ben Lieber on Monday, and I just want to replay this because I ran him by my theory of the Seahawks because he's in agreement with me that he thinks most likely that Sam's going to say, thank you to the Vikings. You got me a big bag of cash. I also helped you guys out. I know you guys want to go to JJ. I'm going to go elsewhere this offseason because you guys don't really want me there. And I threw out the Seattle Seahawks to Ben Lieber, and here's what he had to say.
I think they'd have to do something differently with their offensive coordinator. They don't have a high number of play action pass. That's something that Sam's really, really good at. I think it's going to have to fit his style. And I think right now, currently with their offensive coordinator, this looks like a college offense. And I don't know if that's the best fit for Sam. So I have a crazy theory that he's going to end back up in LA with the Rams. I know that Stafford is again playing really, really well, but he has a gigantic cap value, something like $60 million. If they can get out from underneath that and pay the quarterback, a new quarterback, and get that number significantly down and get a young quarterback that's back in LA that fits the system, then I think that's the best landing spot for him.
So, Hickey, I know that you are a Sam Darnold guy. You've always been a Sam Darnold believer. Matthew Stafford, you just talked about being a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He has 2 years left on his contract. If he doesn't retire, I would assume that Matthew Stafford's still going to be the guy with the Rams, that the Rams aren't going to try to go get Sam Darnold. So do you think the only way that Sam Darnold goes there, and it'd be a great move for Sam Darnold, right? You talk about McVay, you got Puka Nacua, you still got Cooper Kupp there, Kyron Williams. I think the only way that happens, though, if it's retirement. I don't think the Rams are going to look to move off of Matthew Stafford right now, even when he could go play maybe at most another year or two left in the NFL.
I agree. I get what Ben's talking about when it comes to like the contract and the age, right? Not exactly the best combo between the two, but I think Stafford brings a leadership for a team that is pretty young offensively and defensively that I think would be like that'd be a big void. Even though you're bringing a younger and you could argue equally talented quarterback, and on paper at least, I think you would deeply miss that leadership that Stafford brings. It kind of keeps that team together. I think if you're the Rams, I don't think you're looking forward to losing anytime soon.
If I had to go through a few destinations, the Jets, I don't think Sam would go back, but I don't think it's a bad landing spot when you look at some of the young talent that they have on that roster. the Raiders, if they don't end up getting a quarterback in the draft, like, hey, they just fell to 6 and they don't think they could trade up and get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. If you stay at 6, then the Raiders could be a possibility. People will throw out the Browns. I get it. I would understand it. But I don't think the Browns are going to move off of Deshaun Watson. Tennessee will definitely be talked about. I don't think there's enough there in Tennessee for Sam to really have success. After that, the Rams would be ideal, but I don't think Stafford's retiring. And in the NFC South, right, you're not going to the New Orleans Saints, I don't think. So the options really aren't that rich in terms of there will be teams that will want Sam. But how many teams will Sam actually want is a big question. Can I throw a curveball at you? I haven't thought about this until now. If you're the Steelers and you're going to pay Russell Wilson this offseason, I know Russ has had some success this year, but you're not going to win a Super Bowl with Russ. And I'm not saying you're winning a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold. And I know you got Justin Fields in your building, but there's obviously a lack of belief in Fields. If when Fields was winning, Mike Tomlin said, no, we're still going to go back to Russell Wilson. I would much rather, from the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're talking about giving a 3-year contract this offseason to Sam Darnold or Russell Wilson, I would much rather give it to Sam Darnold. And if you're Sam Darnold, that's an organization, even though they haven't won a Super Bowl in a while, and right, ever since they lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game of 2017, they've been nowhere close to winning a Super Bowl again, and they've been one and done in the playoffs. They show up and then they go home. But you look at that team, even though there's not a lot around them in the offensive side of the ball, you got Pickens. We'll see if Najee Harris is back. Jalen Warren's okay. You do got Pat Freiermuth, who's a good tight end in this league. So I'm not saying that you have an abundance of options and weapons there like you do in Minnesota, but there is a respectability factor where at least you'll be in solid hands where your career's not going to go right back down the tubes once again if you go to the Steelers. So even though Russ has been good this year and solid this year, the last 3 games kind of shows you, all right, if you're going to pay that quarterback and it's going to be Russ on a 3-year deal, whatever the money is, I would rather just go with the younger option of a Sam Darnold than an older Russell Wilson, even though Russ has been fine this year. But if there's still that unknown question of can they win a Super Bowl, I would rather roll the dice on the younger option than the older option in Russell Wilson, Hickey. I've never thought about the Steelers until now.
I'm with you. I agree. But I think if you're the Steelers, you have to basically say it's a package deal. If we sign Darnold, we have to upgrade our receivers. Because like you said, you can't go out there next year. Pickens, Calvin Austin, and Mike Williams. Make a run at T. Higgins. Like, you got to get, I think, a trade up in the draft. Like, I think you got some real talent at receiver.
Why do you have to throw T. Higgins out there? I want him to be a Patriot with Drake May.
Well, if you're T. Higgins and you see Sam Darnold in Pittsburgh versus Drake May in New England, who do you want to play for, assuming the money is close?
I think the ceiling is a lot higher for Drake May in this league than it is for Sam Darnold.
Well, if you're ready to, you've been on a contending team for the most part of your entire early career so far. If you're T. Higgins, do you want to go down to maybe, but no guarantee, go up with the Patriots and Drake May? Mm-hmm. Or do you rather make a lateral move to where you still feel like the ceiling's pretty high for the Steelers?
Now, you didn't ask it this way. If I'm T. Higgins, I would take the most amount of money possible. But, yeah, if it was the Steelers or the Patriots, I think you'd rather go to the Steelers.
And I'm assuming his market is going to be, for the most part, the same. No one's coming in here, $40 million, and the next closest offer is like $25. You'd assume any real team that wants to sign him, the money's going to be somewhat similar, you would think.
Yeah,
and then from there,
you would think so.
Then it's, okay, where do you want to play? Quarterback, team, etc.
And you could stick it or try to stick it to the Bengals, too, inside division.
Also true. Not bad. You could play them twice a year. Not bad.
All righty, we'll take a timeout. We'll come on back with the news brief update time. First, here is Erica Herskowitz.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, the Cowboys announcing today they are shutting down star receiver CeeDee Lamb for the rest of the season with that nagging shoulder injury. Lamb is not expected to need surgery, just treatment and rehab. Dallas finishes up the year with games against the Eagles and Commanders. Meanwhile, Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts didn't practice yesterday, putting his status for Sunday's game in question. And former Eagles star receiver Deshaun Jackson is reportedly finalizing a deal to become the next head coach at Delaware State. Thursday night football tonight, the Seahawks will look to stay in the playoff chase when they take on the struggling Bears at Soldier Field. Coming off coaching his high school alma mater to a state title, the NFL Network reports quarterback Teddy Bridgewater is coming out of retirement to play for the Lions. From the NBA, the Mavericks could be without Luka Doncic for an extended period of time. He's having an MRI today on his strained left calf. And responding to rumors, Heat team president Pat Riley says the team has no intention of trading Jimmy Butler. The statement comes just days after that report surfaced that the six-time All-Star wanted to be traded out of Miami ahead of the February 6th deadline. I'm Erica Herskowitz.
This is JR from the JR Sport Brief. We're talking about the NFL all this week on the Infinity Sports Network. Check us out 24/7 on your local affiliate or the Odyssey app.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God.
All right, we're back. It is the Zach Gelb Show, as the music says so right here on the Infinity Sports Network. We got a wrap-up shop here. We'll get you up to date with some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. Let's get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, here is Patrick Mahomes on winning 3 games in 10 days for the Kansas City. How about those Chiefs?
It showed the toughness of the team, and I think we got better as obviously the games went on. And so the guys they're mentally tough and they're physically tough, and we played some really good football teams, some hard fought battles, and the guys came away with 3 wins. So getting that number 1 seed is important. It's like winning a playoff game, and so I was happy to get that done.
Yeah, and who really cares about the last game of the season now? I know that could always be a tough thing to manage, because then do you really want 2 weeks off before your playoff game? But the Chiefs, it doesn't matter what you're throwing their way at them. They only have 1 loss on the season right now. They have the number 1 seed, and they are 2 wins away in the postseason from getting back to a Super Bowl. So when you thought that they were vulnerable, well, yeah, think again. They're as strong as ever. Alrighty, let's go to Deshaun Elliott of the Steelers. So the Steelers lose to the Chiefs yesterday. And the Steelers now, right, they were 10-3 now. They've lost 3 games in a row. They lose to the Eagles, they lose to the Ravens, they lose to the Chiefs. So Deshaun Elliott isn't the first player to say this. We've also heard it from TJ Watt, Patrick Queen, and I think there was a few other people after the game as well. It was Patrick Queen, TJ Watt. Hey, who was the other one? Cam Hayward. Obviously, the longtime defensive, big stalwart right in the middle of that defensive line. So here's Deshaun Elliott calling out the Steelers' defensive woes after the game up against the Chiefs.
First off, guys can't be wide open. That's the first thing. Do your job. You know, I feel like we communicated. Guys just weren't doing their freaking job. So get back to the drawing board. It's week 18. Shouldn't we have these problems in week 18? This is a week 1, week 2 problem. So I don't know where we went down the line, started becoming a whole different defense than what we were. But we got to get back to who we are.
So that was the most animated I heard a Steelers player after the game yesterday on the defensive side of the ball. But when you heard TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and Patrick Queen, and going back to last week for Patrick Queen, say this, they keep on saying when 10 guys are doing their job and 1 guy isn't, it can mess the whole thing up. Now, that's very vague. That's very ambiguous. And part of me says, is there some meaning behind it? Is there actually 1 guy they're pointing out? Or is that just a general thing? And I don't know, Hickey. The way that this has been talked about in the last 24 hours, I don't think this is just, typical players speak. It takes all 11 of us to do our 111th, and when 1 guy doesn't do something the right way, there has to be 1 player in that defense that must just be a pain in the ass leading up to all these games and on the field is constantly doing things wrong. I don't know who it is, but when you have TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Patrick Queen, and then I guess you could also group that Deshaun Elliott sound in it, it seems as if there are bigger problems in Pittsburgh than what we were led on to believe there were about 3-4 weeks ago.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about like week 1, week 2 problems this late in the season. Is it the coordinator? Is it everyone? Either way, riding the Steelers off right now is definitely the right move.
You know, it's kind of funny. It is feeling as if they're going to get into the postseason, right? Ravens win the division. Well, either way, they're playing on Wild Card Weekend because there's only one bye now, with the Chiefs already locking up that bye. Whoever's playing the Steelers, and I guess you have to see what the matchup is. But right now, if you say, did the Steelers win a playoff game, I would probably say no. Right? Would you say yes?
Unless they play like the Texans, like you said, matchup-wise, like they're not going to Baltimore and winning. I'm with you. They're not going to Buffalo and winning.
No?
Yeah. Ugh. Houston's the only real shot they have to advance. And even then, okay, they win, great. Are you winning in round 2? No.
Did you, by the way, see that they changed the times of the playoff for this year?
No.
You have 3 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and 1 on Monday.
They did the reverse, huh?
Yeah. I made plans for January 11th, just like I did last year. That's a Saturday. We go to this place, Harold Deli, which is just like ridiculous amounts of food, a bunch of family friends. We do that on the wild card weekend, and usually I make sure that I'm back at my apartment by 4:30. I saw Mraz put out a tweet today. The schedule, it's at 1 o'clock, the first one. So I got to watch. When I have this big pastrami sandwich, I'm going to have my phone up when I'm watching that stuff.
Nothing gets in the way of the pastrami sandwich. Shame on you, Roger Goodell.
Yeah. Oh. The game will be on my phone. But I'm a little disappointed. I don't like that they changed up that schedule. All righty, finally, let's go to Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. His little warning to his team before their bowl game.
If I smell smoke on any floor, or if I get somebody that tells me somebody's smoking on that floor, that would be your last puff. I'm just trying to tell you. It's going to be your last puff. That's going to be your last puff.
No puff past the Colorado.
I hope it's good, because that's going to be your last one. I promise you, if I smell smoke on your clothes at practice in the morning or at breakfast or anything, that's going to be your last time. I promise you, you will not embarrass us. When the last time? Who's been here? Where's the OBs at? Where's the OBs? When the last time y'all been in a bowl game? Never. And you gonna let some fool mess it up?
Now, I know that there will be some folks that would prefer the real stuff. But if that's the case, why don't you just use a pen, right? So the smell isn't as potent. Like if I'm, not that I have a lot of background in this, but if I'm trying to hide the traditional smell of the marijuana, now it sounds old. Why don't you just use a pen? That's what I'm saying. I don't think Coach Prime's going to be smelling that. So that would be my advice to the Colorado football team. You don't need to roll stuff up for a few days. Just use a pen. All right, that's the Zach Gelb Show, the Infinity Sports Network. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening. Christian Hackenberg as well. We'll do it again tomorrow on a Football Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.